Doctor, Dr.
Hey,
K.
what's up, man? Let me
Hey,
just check my sound
pleasure.
settings.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Did you call me? Did you call me by my dead name?
Did I call you by your dead name?
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I'm
Oh,
just,
I
I just,
apologize. It's just
no,
because
you're good. No, you're good. I
on
saw
Discord
the,
you're
I saw.
Raj.
Oh, yeah. For the record, I'm working with Discord to try to change my name. I've been trying to do it for like a week and a half. I've
Uh-huh.
locked myself out of my email. I've locked myself out of everything because I'm stupid and I'm trying to get it changed. So my Discord name still says the old one, basically.
Yeah, so
So
can I
still
just
working on
ask a
that.
quick question about that?
Yeah, sure.
Because
Yeah, go ahead.
last time I talked to you, you went by Raj,
Hmm.
and just a little bit curious about what prompted the change.
Well, I had there's just like a tremendous amount of people that I mean, I don't know exactly how many people, but there were a lot of people that felt like that it was like they were very problematic and offensive.
Okay.
And I know that there was other people that like didn't. And I mean, I spoke with you. I know you said that you're like, oh, it's just the internet, but I didn't want to leave any real like um reason for those people within my community to feel like they were excluded because of that offense. And to be completely honest, like it didn't make sense anyway. Like I was me, I was who I
Sure.
am, it didn't really make any sense. So I wanted to move on.
Yeah, cool, man. I
Cool.
just want to reiterate that, like
Yeah.
I said to you, I wasn't offended. As an Gujarati Indian. So your name is
Yeah.
Gujarati, or your
And
former
and,
name, sorry.
and I grew up around in a predominantly Indian community, like with a lot of Indian friends, but I felt like that didn't justify my use
Sure.
of the name and such. So like um I wanted to, apologize to those who that were personally affected or impacted and just sort of move on from it. Oh, and by the way, sorry about the band-aid on my forehead. I It's not a zit, but I got a biopsy from a wart that I had, so that's
Yeah,
why I
it's
have the
cool.
biopsy, the
Hey,
Band-Aid
man,
on my forehead. Yeah.
no judgment,
So,
bro.
yeah.
And
So,
just about that for a second. So I want to
yeah.
actually say I appreciate, like, even though I wasn't personally offended, I really appreciate the change. And the reason is because, first of all, like, I know I did and said a lot of things. I don't know when you came up with the name, but like, when I was 19, I did a lot of stupid and offensive stuff.
Mhm.
And I think it's like important to, you know, change and grow. And I can totally get, where you're coming from in terms of sort of saying, like, even though it doesn't bother some people, and like, is it offensive, is it not offensive, just like, just change. And then the other thing is that I think that a lot of times people look to figures like streamers, and even though the streamer may not be doing something that's like completely out of line, it gives their audience license to do things that are more out of line. um,
Yeah. I mean, and we yeah, it's sort of one of those things. I mean, as you say, I mean, I've gone through tremendous progression in my own life, my personal life, my professional life. I came out this past year as gay, or mostly gay, as I say, because sexuality is complex. And it's I've realized that there's just a journey. And when I first started experimenting with my sexuality, at that moment, I was like, nobody's ever gonna know. This is a phase. Um, you know, uh, that sort of thing. So, I've just been on this sort of journey over the last bit of time. And I'm happy, but it sucks, you make mistakes and it sucks. But
yeah.
I hate that. I'll be honest, I hate that. I don't want to say I hate myself, but like I'm just like, God, what a fucking loser you were, like what a
Yeah.
fucking idiot.
No, I'm
So,
I'm I'm with you, man. I mean, I think that's actually like what I really respect about what you're doing, is because like we all make mistakes, and like somewhere along the way it became okay to not make mistakes. You know,
yeah.
and and not to say that it is like it doesn't justify the behavior, but I think the most important
Mhm.
thing to remember is that like human beings aren't born perfect. And ultimately what I look for, and what garners my respect, is like someone's ability to look into their past and say, "Hey, like I did this then and I didn't know any better and now I do, so I'm going to change." And I think
Right.
oftentimes, people will just like judge people for being idiots, which is sort of fair because you were an idiot, and like, so I get that, but at the end of the day,
Mhm.
I think that we should also respect people who are willing to like change the way that they think, and take a step forward. Because, and I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, I don't know what kind of role models we have on the internet.
Mm.
And I think a lot of what we see is because like we don't have, people don't know like what good looks like. And I've just been
Well, it's
thinking a
sure
lot
as
about
hell
that.
not a fucking Band-Aid on the forehead, I can tell you that much.
All right, man. So what are we
Yeah.
talking about today?
We're talking about anxiety, Mr.
Cool.
Doc. I almost called you Mr. K,
That's
but
cool.
that's,
You can
like,
call me Mr.
offensive
K.
because you're a doctor. Um,
No, I mean, I'm not offended.
oh, okay, yeah,
Also, I am a
so,
Mr.
uh, Mr. Dr. K, people call me Doctor Show, which is not accurate. I'm not a doctor. I don't want, and Show isn't my last name. I don't know where that came from, but I changed my channel name to Austin Show, and people call me Mr. and Doctor Show. Um, so
As a doctor, I am not offended by you being called doctor. I think it's just a
so I can change.
colloquialism.
Can I change my name to Doctor Show? Is that what I can do?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is I would consult with an attorney to make sure that your
Okay.
audience understands that you're not a real doctor. But
Okay.
as a personal doctor and Indian person, I have not been personally offended by either of those.
Okay.
If you
Yeah. No
want to, I
problem.
mean, there are all kinds
No
of
problem.
people calling them doctors, all kinds of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. So it's ironic, Dr. K, yeah, that I'm anxious to talk about anxiety. It's actually kind of fitting, but
Yeah, most
I'm
people
ready to
are.
be open and transparent with it. And I think that maybe I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate with anxiety in the chat, but as we go through the course of our conversation, they'll probably understand why
Sure.
I'd be anxious to talk about anxiety. But yeah.
Yeah, so you want to just start there? Like, why are you anxious to talk about anxiety?
Um, I think anxiety and sort of like, mental health in general is a very personal, intimate thing. I guess not. I feel like it's something that definitely needs to be talked about because it's a problem that so many people deal with, and I think the solution is talking about it and sort of being open about your emotions and feelings. But I just think that like the anxiety from talking about anxiety is like sort of like the idea of like feeling vulnerable and talking about things that are just, you know, things that are personal to you that you don't really talk about because you sort of put on like a rough exterior as a
Mhm.
personality that like you are expected to sort of be more than or like
What
above, you know what I mean?
what are you expected to be?
Well, I mean, I don't know if the expectation is like exactly set forth like specifically, but I feel like I'm expected to sort of be perfect in some regard. Um
In which
and like
regards?
sort of held to a higher standard, which I understand why that would be the case, given that I think we are held to a higher standard and rightfully so. We have a lot of influence. And so we should be held to a higher standard. Um but yeah, but still, despite that, I still um am a human being and I have these emotions and everything. So it's very complicated. Sorry, I don't know if I answered your question
Yeah, man,
correctly
I
there.
think you answered it really well. I think,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting because, like, I don't know when we started holding different humans to different standards. Like, I don't know if that's actually good. Like, so,
Yeah,
like, if
yeah.
you're a streamer, you shouldn't be an asshole. But if you're in Twitch chat, like, it's okay to be a racist asshole.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting because like everyone says like it's the standard thing that everyone says like, oh, like I should be held to, like I'm held to a high, like why? Why can't we hold, like why can't we expect everyone to be decent human beings?
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, I've come to the conclusion that we, including myself, is everybody's a little bit of a hypocrite,
Yeah.
across the board. Like if you evaluate everybody's life holistically, is that the right word, Dr. K? I'm in an intellectual environment. You're a
I,
doctor. Is
I, I
holistically the right word? Let me
you
look
tell
this up.
me, man.
Holistically.
I don't know what you're trying to say, so I don't know if it's the right word.
I was just like trying to say overall, like look at the
Sure.
whole picture.
Sounds
Like if you were to
holistic to me.
evaluate everybody's life, like on the whole picture, I think you would find that everybody is a hypocrite. Everybody,
Yeah.
100% of the people are hypocritical
Sure.
to some degree. I mean, if you really look at it, so that sort of thing. But yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
I
I
don't know where
mean,
I was going with
I don't know where I was going. It's just interesting because I hear this line a lot that everyone, like, I should be held to a higher standard than other people.
Mm,
And I feel that way too. Like, I feel like I have to be held to a higher standard. But then,
same
like, there
here.
are other parts of me that, like, why do other people get a pass? Why can't we hold everyone to the same standard? Isn't that really what equality is? Like, and
Yeah.
and I also think that sometimes what I see is that actually people hold streamers to unfair standards. Kind of
See,
like you.
I feel like, yeah. I mean, what do you mean in particular?
I mean, just like, so if we just listen to some of what you started saying, you were kind of saying, like, I feel like I have to maintain an exterior, right? You feel like you have to maintain something. You feel like maybe other people are allowed to feel, whereas on some level, you may not be, or you may not feel as allowed to feel,
Yeah.
right? And it's
Like,
unclear whether you're actually allowed or not allowed, but like,
let me give you an example of like the exterior
please.
portion, and how that's communicated to the audience, because I think that maybe the people might not understand exactly where I'm coming from. Let's say I'm like going through like a serious like mental health breakdown or something, like, and like I need to like I'll like take out a show, I'll like cancel a show. I sometimes don't feel like, and sometimes I'll be like, hey, I'm going through a rough patch, and I'll explain that. But other times I feel like I can't really say like, hey, the reason I acted this way was because I was anxious, because people are like, oh yeah, nice excuse, or something like that. Or the reason I was like, you know, doing this or whatever is because I was anxious. People, I feel like it's just an excuse or whatever. So,
Sounds like you
um,
feel judged.
yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, yeah, of course, yeah, to some
Yeah.
degree,
For being
yeah.
human.
Yeah, but look, I mean, I also want to say that I'm extremely extraordinarily blessed to be in the position that I'm in, and like I feel like, you know, the
Hold,
pros of this.
hold on a second, Austin.
Yeah,
Hold on. Okay, this is
yeah.
weird. So I'm going to
Okay,
point
what?
out. So I said, do you feel judged for being human? And what
Yeah,
was your response?
to go to basically say that I'm not human.
Yep.
Or like to
Right.
like
So
basically be like, yeah, you're just human, and then like think of it as sort of like an excuse that you said. Like I thought you saying that was giving me an excuse,
it's
basically.
weird, right?
That's how I try
So
to
I
get out of
said,
it.
"Hey
Yeah.
man, you're allowed to be human." And you said, "But I'm blessed." And there's something very insidious there, which I
Mhm.
like really want to point out. Like, I could be wrong about this, by the way.
Sure. Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
go ahead.
weird, right? Like, I'm saying, Austin, you're allowed to be human, and you're basically saying in your response, I didn't even let you finish. I'm sure you would
Mhm.
have said something, but I just want you to notice what your mind did is you talk about the privilege. And why does someone like talking about the privilege that you've been given in life sort of in that moment invalidates like your capacity to be upset or hurt or whatever. I see this a lot with like privileged people where they
Mhm.
almost like invalidate, like that's the standard that you hold yourself to. You see that? It's like you're not letting
Mhm.
yourself be like a human. And if somebody else is a Twitch streamer and they say, yeah, like, life is hard, you're going to be like, but you're blessed. That's not what you say to them. You're like, yeah, man, like,
No.
you deserve to
Yeah.
be have a rough life too. Like, even if you're a Twitch streamer, like, it's cool, but it comes with a lot of pressure. But when you think
Yeah.
about yourself, you're like, oh, but I'm blessed. It's almost like it's like the party line that you have to say to like not feel like an asshole,
Basically. It's like how
right?
I feel, because and I feel like that has to something to do with the culture, sort of like, of our industry in general, just culture in general. I think that people that, and I even feel guilty even talking about this, because like I feel like people are gonna be reacting the same way. But celebrity types, and I'm not a celebrity, but like in people with influence in large audiences, I feel like the stigma is like, oh, you make a lot of money, you're fine, like you're good.
Yeah,
You're not
so
allowed to have those
let's
emotions,
talk about
whatever.
that guilt. What makes you feel guilty?
Like about like being privileged.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I don't necessarily feel guilty about like being privileged per se.
Yeah.
I just feel like I can't communicate my feelings without being judged about them, if that makes sense.
That makes
So, like, I
perfect
feel
sense.
like I have tremendous privilege, but I don't want people to conflate, is that the right word, Dr. K? I'm using big words here.
I
Conflate,
don't know
mix
what
up,
the
right?
I can't
Because
answer the
conflate, I need a
question until you
I'm just
finish the
trying to get a
sentence.
definition, basically. So to conflate, what does conflate mean? It means,
Mix up.
mix up. Okay, good. I'm happy I'm using these words correctly. Um, I don't want people to conflate me talking about my emotions and feelings as me not being appreciative of the privileged position that I'm in. And I feel like often, if I were to talk about some of the things that I feel, like my anxious thoughts or feelings, and it might not be rational, I feel like maybe people would be like, wow, this guy's complaining when he drives a Lambo. And I don't drive a Lambo, Dr. K. That's just a meme. But like, oh, this guy's got a great life, you know. Like, why is he complaining about anything at all? You know, so I try to keep any complaining about anything to a minimum,
Yeah,
basically, because
so
of that.
let me ask you
People are
something. So
capping it, it's a meme, but yeah,
to
sorry.
to to I just closed Twitch chat a little while ago because I can't.
I like reading it actually. I
Okay.
don't know why. I just like
I mean, I like it too. It's just it
maybe I'm
makes
like
it
a
hard for me.
masochist. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Um,
I like reading. Hi,
so
chat. Sorry.
Austin, two
Yeah.
thoughts. Okay.
Okay.
First is just think about, what is like you're saying, like there's a part of you that says, and I'm not saying this part is wrong. I'm just saying, like, let's look at it. Okay. And
Mhm.
we could talk about your anxiety at some point if you want
Yeah, yeah, sure.
to. There's
I
a
think this is
part
all connected, right? It's all connected
I
to
think
some
so.
degree.
So if there's a part of you that basically says like you're not allowed to complain, right? Like and like I've seen that before, and bizarrely, like I'm not trying to draw a connection here. It's just weird because like really I hear this kind of dialogue in abusive relationships.
Uh-huh.
Like people
Oh.
invalidate their own viewpoint and they say I'm not allowed to suffer because dot dot dot.
Are you saying, Dr. K, I'm in an abusive relationship with my audience?
There's conflation, my friend. You understand
Okay.
conflating two
Okay,
things.
did I conflate it? Okay,
No,
I'm
no,
sorry.
it's no, it's a reasonable conclusion because I
Yeah,
said that I'm just saying like
yeah,
I'm pointing out an
sorry.
observation. I actually don't know what it
Yeah.
means.
Yeah, okay, got it, yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I see this sort of idea that like, oh, I'm not allowed to complain, right? And like,
Mhm,
it's fair in a sense, right? That like you should be grateful for your privilege and you should be grateful that you have things that other people don't have. And I do believe that like I kind of agree with this guy Gautam Buddha or Buddha
mhm.
that suffering is like a part of life and that there's no human that is not going to experience suffering or is entitled to experience suffering. Do I think that all people experience the same amount of suffering? No. But I don't think that like gatekeeping suffering is like a way forward. Because that leads to all this weird toxic shit like, one-upmanship and like invalidation of other feelings and like, I just don't think that that's healthy. The second thing is, like you keep on asking me about like using language properly, or like, are you concerned about being perceived as like not intelligent?
No, I don't care. It's
Is
actually
that a
sort of like
joke?
yeah, sort of a meme or joke.
Okay, okay,
I actually don't really mind being, like, perceived as an idiot.
okay,
Like, so
okay,
I'd say sometimes maybe, like, it would get to me, but, I mean, oh, people I don't really care too much, like, it doesn't really bother me that much,
okay,
about being, like, perceived as an absolute moron, because I think generally Twitch chat across the board thinks we're all stupid, like, and it's sort of like a fun, loving way.
sure,
Um, yeah, I don't think I'm stupid. I don't have
okay.
like a complex where I feel like I'm stupid, you know?
Can I
But
ask you just one more question about that?
go ahead, yeah.
Would it be okay if you did have a complex about feeling stupid?
Yes, I think. Hold on, wait, let me think about that question. Um, yeah, I suppose so. I guess it
Okay,
would. I don't know if they're it's sort of like, I guess that's the way you feel, right? But it's not like something that I like. Maybe like there's isolated moments, like because I think we all have these, right? We all have like these moments where, like, is broadcasters, like maybe we're being serious about something, and we don't want to be joking in that moment, and
mm,
then maybe we take it more personally. But to me, it's not like I get off stream and I'm like, oh God, they think I'm so dumb. I'm not actually
okay,
dumb, you know. I don't have
okay,
that real problem. It doesn't bother me at all.
okay, okay, cool.
So.
Thanks for answering that. I appreciate it.
Now I do have a problem with saying "like" a lot, but I'm dealing with it.
What do you mean by that?
No, it's just
Okay.
never mind. It's all good.
uh,
Okay.
yeah. So let's talk about anxiety.
Let's talk about it. I'm
So
ready.
what do you mean by anxiety?
Um, that's a good question. Really making me think here. What do I mean by anxiety? The way I define anxiety is just sort of like the physiological response to events out of my personal control. So let's say I'm going on an airplane. My mind will immediately go to the worst case scenario that could possibly happen. I get on the plane, I'm in a seconds to disaster movie. Next thing you know, we're going down, it's over. On a because in the call and for some reason my mind, it's hard for me to explain this, but my mind will go to the worst case scenario of anything. Like, let's say I went on a trip. I went out of town like last week. Um, and I drove. I drove to this town in a different state. And on that drive, you go through a mountain pass. And through that mountain pass, you are you are going through periods of places where you are going to like get um, there's like oncoming traffic or whatever
Mhm.
that you could cross over there's no median. You could cross over and come into a head-on collision. And so every time I drive up there, the thought in my head is, "Oh my gosh, that could happen to me. I need to be so careful." And then I get anxious about it. Like, "Oh my gosh, what if I get in this head-on collision? Like I'm gonna move." And so as I drive up there, I'm like during this part of the drive, I'm like holding the wheel very tightly, hugging the right side just in case, and like, especially when cars like come the other way, and like just making sure that. And part of that's being just safe as a driver
Mhm.
and be sort of aware,
Sure.
but part of that's like irrational. Like, of course, yes, that's a possibility to happen, but is that really rational? And why would I get worked up about it? I have no idea. And even no matter how often I go through this, it just for some reason and like try to justify it and know that it's like crazy, I still have these crazy thoughts of the worst case scenario, worst possible thing that could happen. Um, so so
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it
Mhm.
paints a beautiful picture of anxiety. Um, can I collect my thoughts for a second?
Yes, please. Go
Okay.
ahead.
How old are you, Austin?
26.
Okay. Gonna need another, like maybe like a minute. I'm just coming up with a plan to kind of think through and approach this with you. Okay. How long have you been having these thoughts?
Since I can remember, um, since I was younger,
Like how
um,
young?
gosh, it's gotten worse with age, I'd say.
Okay.
Um, but I'd say like probably I can't really remember, to be honest. Just very early, I sort of had like the inclination, but it yeah,
Okay.
not anything in
So you used to,
particular.
do you remember what, can Lee like paint us a picture of what you used to worry about like as a kid?
Ooh. As a kid, I would worry about they wouldn't be the same. So I mean, sort of similar things. Like for example, around like the I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something random from my childhood that I like. One time, a lot of this has to do with planes, which is ironic because I used to want to be a commercial airline pilot, and I still have a passion for aviation. But um, this one time, like I was like getting on a plane, and I had like a complete mental, like, breakdown and, like, anxiety attack. I was with my mom, we were on, like, a soccer trip, and I saw, like, a box board the plane, right? Just, like, on, like a box that was, like, all taped up and weird and just stuff, and immediately my mind went to, because this was, like, 2000s, and I was, like, immediately my mind went to, "Oh, shit, like, we're gonna go, like, it's gonna, like, this is it, like, that's a suspicious package, it's gonna, something's gonna happen, that there's something in there that's gonna take the plane down or something," and I, like, panicked and just, like, I didn't wanna board the plane at all. Of course, we ended up boarding and it's fine, right? But that was
Why?
where my brain went.
Okay, so there's something weird there. So, like you said, your brain is like it's a suspicious package, and the plane is going to go down.
Yeah,
What are
like,
you not like? It's weird.
that's
Like,
where my head
what's in
went.
the package?
That's what I was thinking. It was probably the likely scenario is, in which it was just some package filled with some stuff.
No, no, but
But
why can't you use the word bomb?
I don't know, that because I don't
Is
know.
that what you thought was in the package?
Yeah, I thought it was some sort of explosive, yeah.
So it's just weird because, like, even now, as you tell the story, like, I would imagine that if I had anxiety
Mhm.
and, like, because we all know you're talking about a bomb,
Yeah.
but you're not using the word bomb. It's just strange.
I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know exactly, yeah.
I don't know exactly what to make of that observation, but like it's almost.
Mhm.
I mean, there's like a Voldemort aspect to it, where if you like, speaking its name is like somehow I don't know, it just feels weird. Like it feels like kind of like avoidant to use the like you're not trying to use the like you're trying to say it without using the
Mhm.
word bomb, which I don't know
Yeah.
what the significance of that is, but it certainly seems to be like there.
I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know exactly why, yeah, I
Do
don't
you see
know.
what I'm saying though?
Yeah, I get it. No, I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah,
So I mean,
absolutely.
it's just like we don't have to understand everything. Let's just make observations. Then we'll
Sure,
sort
yeah.
out, whether there's some kind of like avoidance,
Yeah,
or does it make
absolutely.
you feel silly to use that word?
Yeah, well, it sort of makes me feel silly that I even thought that, if that makes sense. Like,
Yes.
it's just silly that I even thought that that would
Yeah.
be the case,
So
that I would be the yeah,
you're judging yourself for your irrational words, and so
right,
like maybe speaking irrational words like makes your thoughts sort of more real, and like the silliness increases.
right.
So
I don't, because it is so silly, because Dr. K, this was a flight that if I can remember in particular, was like a 25-minute flight, like, from,
okay,
it was, like, literally like a flight, and, like, rationally, it doesn't make sense. It just does. First of all, it never made sense, but, like, just the idea that this random flight would be the target of something, like, it just doesn't, there's no rationale, period, from anything, but, like, it was just so stupid to even think
so
of that in that particular situation.
Okay, so you sometimes I'm not so sure I agree with that, but we'll
Oh, you
get
don't
there.
think it's rational?
We'll get there. Maybe.
Okay,
Okay. So let me ask you
okay.
this. Like so you basically think about your it sounds like your anxiety is mostly thinking about catastrophic, very low likelihood scenarios actually occurring,
Mhm. Right.
right?
Which I think, yeah, but I think, I don't know. Does everybody think like that? Or in the sense that, like, they think of the worst case scenario? I think the thing for me is I will obsess over it for,
Sure.
like, I will obsess over it, I'll lose sleep over it, I won't eat, I can't sleep as soon, like, for example, when I go on long flights, I cannot sleep at all, just because
Okay.
for the reason that I'm afraid that if I go to sleep, I'm gonna wake up to everybody around me screaming, and if I let my personal guard down, that's just what my brain goes. If I let my personal guard down, then something's gonna happen. If I relax, something's gonna happen. If I'm
Okay,
not on
so
my if
Austin,
I'm not on alert,
what's
yeah.
happened when you did let your personal guard down?
Nothing, nothing. When I
You sure about
relax,
that?
nothing. I mean, nothing's happened, I don't think.
Is there anything and so now we got to be careful because I suspect that so we're running up against an enemy here, which is your judgment that's going to make it hard for you to speak, right?
Right.
So has something happened to you that feels super irrational where you let your guard down and something catastrophic happened to you as a result?
I can't think of, like, anything in particular
Okay.
where that was the case.
Can you tell me go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, go ahead.
Can you just tell me a little bit about your upbringing?
Yeah, sure. What about it? What do you want to know?
Just where'd you grow up? What was that like?
I grew up in I don't the geographical stuff is like irrelevant, but on the West Coast, Oregon,
Sure.
state of Oregon. Um, I had a pretty good. I had a stable upbringing. There was no real issues. Um,
Can you tell me about your parents?
yeah, married. Um, like they were. I love my mom and dad. They've been like extremely supportive of me throughout and provided me with the tools I feel like that have created the person that I am today. So, um,
And who's the person that you are today?
well, I mean, I feel like obviously as anybody, I've made mistakes and done things, but I feel like I'm a good person. I feel like I try to do the right thing. I feel like I've made mistakes, but I feel like yeah, I feel like that's who I am.
Are they proud of you, Austin?
Yeah, yeah, they are. They tell me that they are. So
Do you
yeah,
feel like they're proud of you?
I know they are. Yeah, I do.
How does that feel?
It feels good. It feels really good. It feels good to know that. Um, and I have a hard time sort of communicating, that sort of thing to them or, I'm not I, like, I have a hard time communicating emotions sometimes or whatever, but,
Sure.
I am yeah, I'm very sorry, I'm getting I get it. Yeah, anyway,
What are you
but,
apologizing for?
no, no, nothing. Just getting, sort of like crying, I guess. I don't know.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing. Nothing. I think we should be
Do you feel
in
like
tune.
something is wrong with it?
I think this is just like this whole issue of like being judged, I guess. We goes back to the root of the
Yep.
conversation.
Sure.
Being
So what
judged.
so
This is like not okay. You can't feel this. This is not what this is. I guess it goes back to that.
yeah, it does. What does that feel like?
It doesn't feel good because I want to share because I feel like there's people that relate, but I just feel like because of who we like the influence that I have, I sort of have to put on a happy face and just you know what I mean?
Yeah, so here's what I'm hearing from you, Austin. You're not
Mhm.
allowed to. What do you
Yeah,
think about
basically.
that?
Like I feel like I'm not a like I feel like I'm not allowed to express myself in this particular way. And again, there I go. My mind just went to like a justification, like to
Good.
try to clear up any
Tell
like
me.
my mind at that moment when you said that, my
Mhm.
mind went to I don't feel this way all the time, and I actually don't really feel like I even need to talk about it. Like it's just this is just like we're talking about things that happen, and it's not even a big deal. And that's where my mind went.
Yeah.
That's where it went.
It
Even in the
it's
context of a place where we're talking about this sort of thing, you
yeah,
know?
so it's also weird because like you almost said that you're not allowed to be happy. I mean, sorry, you're not allowed to be like because we've been talking about you don't have the right to be sad or suffer. And yet that part of you that's self-judgmental and doesn't allow you to actually pops up when you're expressing gratitude, appreciation, and good feelings, but you still feel like you're not allowed to. Like, you see that? It's weird. Even the rational justification for why you're not allowed to feel props up when it doesn't even apply, which is like,
Yeah,
are you not allowed to say that, like, you say, I'm privileged, but what you just showed us is your privilege in its purest and, highest form, which is that like I had a stable household with parents who loved me and
mhm,
they're proud of me, which is like something that not many people in our audience have.
yeah,
And yet, you still feel like when you can say the words I'm privileged, but you can't show it to people.
right.
It's weird.
Yeah, I wanna highlight something because I don't know if this is the case. It is how do I say about my upbringing because and I don't know if this is the root cause of anything because I've done some self-reflection, like, on things like that
That
to
much
try
is
to
clear.
psychoanalyze myself, and think, and I'm trying to, like, wonder if growing up, my mom is a tremendous mother, like, she was tremendous and, was awesome, throughout. But one thing she did do is she scared the ever living shit out of me about things, drugs, um, you know, going, making sure that you're, you're not crossing the street in a certain place, or like
Mhm.
making sure you're being safe about that, wearing, very much stressing, wear a helmet. And those are like common things, right? But like almost to like a, like very much like if you don't, you like something negative will happen to you sort of thing.
Mhm.
Like something negative will happen. And I don't know what the association with is, but I do like for example, I hope people are gonna laugh, but I I don't do I smoke marijuana, right? But that's the only thing that I do that's like a drug. And even that, it took me till I was about 19 years old to even try that, because I was terrified of even that. Um, but I don't drink. And when I say I don't drink, it's like I don't like, um I have maybe a drink every once in a while, but it's very rare.
Mhm.
I've been drunk. It's not like I have anything against drinking, but those are things that I feel like uh, growing up, I was told, basically not the drinking part as much, but more like the drugs part not to do. And so I'm absolutely terrified. That's
S
probably a good thing, but I don't know.
So, Austin, let me ask you something. So you offered this, you said, "I psychoanalyze myself." My
Mhm.
mom used to your words were, "Scare the ever living shit out of you."
Yeah.
How do you think that's related to your anxiety?
Well, I think that, like, my mom would describe things the way that I think of it, and it's weird, like, when I'm conscious of this, but I still have the reaction, But the way that my mom would describe things, like, let's say that there was like, let's say the helmet thing, right? Like, I don't know, she would go to describe just, like, the traumatic brain injury that could be sustained off of that, or the drug-related thing, like, it just takes one time, and here's a situation where this person died, instantly, and they were just like you, and they just died. And I feel like all these things as a mother, I don't blame her for telling me in these particular situations, because obviously it prevented me from doing drugs, prevented me from wearing a helmet, but, like, I wonder if there was certain situations where it was the maybe it like sort of went my mind sort of just goes to everything that I do to the worst case scenario. And I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just sort of wondering if that had anything to do with it, because I don't know where this comes from at
What do
all.
you think?
I don't know. I
Where do
just
the
don't
thoughts in
know.
our head come from?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know where they come from.
Yeah,
And I'm not
so
trying to blame her for see, there my mind went again. I'm not trying to blame her. It's not her fault. That's where I get to try to
so be
take
careful. Would you be okay
okay.
blaming her if it was her fault?
Because I love my mom. I don't think that it would be her intention to do something like that, to, like, cause me, like,
Nice
or
dodge,
do some
Austin.
okay.
Beautiful.
Um,
See there, you did it. You did it again.
yeah,
I'm
I did it.
blessed.
I'm blessed, I'm blessed. But blame has such, like, a negative connotation,
Sure
I
it
feel like.
does.
Like, blame, like, she did
Yep.
something horribly wrong, like, she's a terrible person for that or something like that, but that to me, that's not the case. Like, I
So
don't want people to think that if I say it's my mother's fault for
there's
that or whatnot.
there's conflation, right? So let me put it this way. So I'm with you that the word blame carries a bad connotation. Is it possible for her to be responsible without you blaming her?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, certainly. If we just
Do
talk
you,
about it, like, straight up here, if something that she did, I guess it could be responsible. Whether what she did was see, there I go again, Dr. K, trying to
go for it. Say it out loud.
but, like, if what she was doing was it wrong, or was it just how I became like, is doing those things or saying those things, is that inherently wrong, or is it just, like, something that just was a sort of like an unfortunate, like, that my brain just happened to work this way, and maybe she was saying it to the wrong kid, basically, you know? Um,
So give me a second, and then I will have. I believe I may have answers for you. Okay,
okay, sure.
and that too could be a mistake because, like, let me say I have hypotheses.
Yep, sure, yep.
Okay, hold on. I mean, so Austin, let me ask you something. Do
Sure.
you think that you're anxious because your mom scared the ever living shit out of you on a relatively constant basis?
My true answer is I don't know. I don't know if that was the case. It sort of came across my
What does it
mind as a
feel like?
potential possibility. I feel like what?
What does it feel? What does it feel like the answer is? I'm not asking for the right answer. I'm asking for the visceral answer. And if the answer is I don't know, that's fine.
It truly is, Dr. K.
Okay,
I don't know
that's
because
fine.
in
Yeah.
my mind, I feel like it's a potential that contributed, but I don't believe that it would be 100% of
Okay.
the reason. But
Yeah.
maybe it was a
I don't.
potential
I think
contributor.
I I'm with you 100%, and I would agree with that 100%. I don't think it's
Yeah.
everything. I think it's a potential contributor. So let's
Right.
just talk for a second about where thoughts come from. So I
Mhm.
know it's kind of like a basic question, but generally speaking, thoughts come from experiences, right? Like I don't start thinking about unicorns until like I see unicorns. Like I don't start, you can't fall in love with a girl or guy that you've never seen or met, right? Like it's kind of simple, but like, you can't want to eat a hamburger until you like see it or smell it or like see pictures of it or see your friends eating it. Like the thoughts in our mind are generated from, generally speaking, our experiences. The other thing is like the things that our mind learns how to do, it learns from like some pretty common sources. And at the top of the list are parents, right? So like if I say please and thank you, that's going to be like something that my mind automatically generates based on the way that I was raised. If I'm a racist asshole, that also is going to probably be related to the way that I was raised. Right? Like if you look at, like, I grew up in East Texas where, there were a lot of racist people, and I was kind of racist too. I'm still sort of racist. Like it's still in me. I can feel it. I try to like, but like I was raised in a particular way to like think about people in a particular way. And oddly enough, like some of my racism is towards like white people because I grew up with people that I used to call rednecks, right? And so I was like, these guys are uncultured. Like that's actually still racist. You get that? Like,
Mm.
you know,
Mhm.
I'm judging a class of people based on the color of their skin or where they come from, and I make assumptions about them. And so the first thing to understand is like in my experience, anxiety comes from two places. So the first thing is it's not irrational. Like we think it's irrational because when we judge the thought, we're like, that's not going to happen. But what is completely rational is that our mind doesn't generate irrational thoughts. It generates thoughts as best as it knows how. And even in the objective manner of truth, those thoughts are irrational. Like you can say that, like let's just talk about sexual assault for a moment. So like when someone is sexually assaulted, they feel like a bad person. And I'll give you just a very visceral, but like I think this is the truest example of this. When a child is sexually assaulted, so back when kids are growing up, they don't have something called theory of mind, which means that they don't understand that other human beings exist. Literally, their brain has not developed the capacity to understand that like other human beings exist.
Mhm.
They're super narcissistic. Like a kid, when it's hungry, doesn't understand that like a parent is busy or like has a phone call. They just know that I'm hungry and like there's no food and they get upset. They're like the
Right.
only actor. And then over time, they develop something called theory of mind, and their theory of mind gets like really, really good when they hit teenage years. And that's why people become so socially anxious as teenagers because they're like, oh shit, other people exist and they have opinions about me. And what I do affects the way that they think about me. Does that make sense? Like a 7-year-old just isn't really
Yeah.
that concerned with like what people think generally. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So imagine if you're the only person in the world and you get sexually assaulted, whose fault is it?
If you're the only person in the world and you get sexually assaulted by yourself,
It's your fault. Absolutely.
if you're
Right?
the only person in the world.
Yeah. So like when you have a 4-year-old that gets sexually assaulted, they feel like it's their fault. They feel like they're bad people. Right?
Oh.
And it's bizarre because it's sort of like When I'm learning, and that's evolutionary. It's like when I'm learning to walk and I fall down and I'm 2 years old, whose fault is it?
It that's so interesting. I've never even thought of it that way ever.
Yeah, it's shocking.
It because a lot of people don't understand. Because I'm like, "Oh, how could that be your fault?" Sort of
Yep.
thing.
But that's what they
But,
say. Like if you talk to them, like everyone knows that victims of sexual assault blame themselves. And what we all tell them is it's not your fault. But
uh,
they feel like it's their fault, right? So like where the fuck does that come from? And then we say like and then they feel even stupider because there's a lot of people out there telling them it's not your fault, but they're like but it feels like it's my fault. It's invalidating their perspective. And so it sort of makes rational sense, right? That it's not your fault that like you were assaulted. Certainly if you're not four. But at the same time, that's the way that they feel. And it like the thoughts that are generated by the mind may seem objectively irrational, but the mind has a damn good reason for generating a particular thought. Like if our mind generated unuseful or unadaptive thoughts, we wouldn't be alive. The first thing to understand is that your mind adapts to circumstances. Like if you stub your toe, your brain is like, let's take care of that shit. How can a brain that can teach you how to walk, teach you how to talk, teach you how to like deal with animals, deal with people, understand broad societal movements and why you should change your name, can reflect on like what you've done in the past? This is the instrument that you're dealing with, and you're just saying like in this one random corner of your mind it's just broken. Like that's not how it works.
right.
Anxiety comes from somewhere. And this is the reason why people can't get over their anxiety, because you assume that there's a part of your car that's busted when actually it's working exactly like it's supposed to. So any attempts to fix it are not going to work because you don't understand actually what's going on.
So, okay. And sorry if I go back to specific examples because
Go
I
for
just
it.
wanna take
Nope.
you
Yep.
as time goes on, I'll be like, because it's kinda, like, embarrassing some of the stuff that I do to, like, try to fix. So when I feel anxious, what I wanna do is try to get rid of those feelings of
Yep.
anxiety and enjoy
Yep.
what I'm doing. I'm fortunate enough where again, here I go, but I'll just talk because 'cause I'm sure
It's
it's
fine.
helpful.
It's okay for you to
I'm
be
fortunate
feel
enough
like you're
where my
fortunate.
anxiety doesn't normally stop me from doing anything. It just
Okay.
sort of makes the experience very unpleasant, like,
Okay.
extremely unpleasant. Um, so, like, I'll go back to the plane one because I think it's, like, an easy example to point to things that I do specifically. So this is my process before I go on a flight. And for the record, I used to wanna be a commercial airline pilot, which I'm sure a lot of people are, like, really they don't understand how you can have a fear of flying, whoops, while, like, wanting to be
Yep.
a pilot, and
Sure.
maybe I don't really know the answer to that. But when I go on a plane, I'm scared of all the things that I alluded to, before, but so what I try to do in my head is to work to try to make myself feel better. So what does that mean? And, so what I'll do is I'll look up the flight plan, I'll look up the weather forecast, I'll monitor the plane's altitude and airspeed while the plane is flying. Like, I'll sit there and, like, on the airlines on the screen, um you'll see like airspeed and like altitude and whatnot. And because of my knowledge of aviation, I'll feel better watching the airspeed, the weather, and everything. Just looking to make sure it's normal. Because when you're sitting in a plane in the back of it, often you can't really tell what and what isn't normal, right? So like, like when we're going in for when we're taking off, I'll monitor the airspeed when we're taking off, and I'll look at my phone, right? I'll look at my phone, I'll look at the airspeed. I'm like, well, we're in a 737-900. We need to be at, at this time, we need to be at this particular speed. Or, or like I'm expecting that we're going to turn
Austin,
this
I'm
or
I'm going to
what.
ask you a question. Does that feel like you're feeding or satisfying something?
It feels in the moment, it feels like I'm like, okay, everything's actually going normal. Because like I said, looking out the window, it's hard to really
So it's
judge.
it's satisfying, right? So your
To me,
mind
yes.
is hungry for
Mhm.
something
Yes.
and then you provide it with something and
Yes.
then it's satisfied.
Right.
So what
Yeah.
happens to something that is hungry and then you give it food?
It's full.
Yep. And what happens to it over time?
You need to eat again.
Absolutely.
But But I've never thought of these behaviors as being like exceptionally like healthy. Like, because like for me, I feel like
because they're
going
not,
on my yeah, exactly. Like going
right?
on my phone and connect and buying Wi-Fi to
So
look at all these things is just not
so
rational.
yeah, so let's, I don't want you. Okay, so we're gonna talk. Man, there's so much to talk about. This is fantastic, man. So I
Yeah,
think I really want to explain a lot of stuff to you, and I
sure.
hope that your anxiety can get better. Also,
I
we
hope
should
so.
talk a little bit about whether you should actually get into treatment because it sounds like you may have an anxiety disorder.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
so I would recommend that you actually get evaluated by a real
Mhm.
psychiatrist for that.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But let's just talk about the nature of mind for a second and talk about anxiety in general. Okay. So
Mhm.
the first thing is that, like, I want you to just think about a scenario. So let's say I have low self confidence and then, like, I'm feeling bad about myself. So what I do is I DM a friend of mine and I'm like, hey, like, do you think I'm a piece of shit? And then they say, no, man, you're awesome. And then, like, what happens to my feeling of low self confidence?
Well, I'm hoping that it would go up at that point, but then you would probably I kind of maybe forgive me if I'm going ahead of you, but are you insinuating like later the self confidence would that was him eating,
Yep.
right, and filling him up,
But
and then afterwards he has to eat again to get that
absolutely, right?
same
So
thing.
but is that your observation in the world? That reassurance to people who lack confidence doesn't really fix the problem. It just is sort of like a band aid. That's the hypothesis. Do you agree with that?
I now the way you describe it, yes, but I think that a lot of people would think that like constant support in in that particular situation would get them to be more confident.
Yep. But that's
But
actually not what happens,
yeah, okay.
right? Because,
Mm,
like, y'all will know this if you have either been this person or you have had a friend who's like this. That no matter how many times you tell them that they are awesome people, they need to hear it again.
that's so God, I never you're blowing my mind because I've never thought of it that way. Because 'cause I've been on the opposite end of people that feel that way, and me telling them, I'm like, I feel like this is, like, helping them, like, they're gonna feel better, and they may feel better
They,
in
they
that
do feel
moment
better
in the moment,
in the
but then
moment.
after that,
You're
they
just
have
feeding the
to feel
beast.
exactly. I never thought about it that way. I always thought of
Okay,
it as, like, the solution was to continue to make them feel better.
absolutely. And, like, let's just think about that scientifically. If that was the solution, if you did it for a couple months, they should be better. Then, like, people wouldn't have, if we look at it systemically as a society, people have confidence problems all the time. Everyone's fucking reassuring each other. If that was the good solution, no one would have confidence problems. The solution. So what I really want to encourage you to do, Austin, and
Mhm,
we're going to talk about this in a second with commercial pilot and fear of flying, is
mhm.
instead of taking something that doesn't make sense and adjusting the data, we need to adjust the way that we look at the data for the data to make sense. The data is the data. Just because it's irrational for you to want to be a commercial airline pilot and have a fear of flying doesn't mean it's irrational. If both of those things exist in your mind, that doesn't mean it's irrational. We need to take a step back and assume for a moment that that's perfectly irrational, perfectly rational. And then we need to develop an understanding of the mind that makes those two thoughts coexist, because that's actually what's happening in your mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's weird, Dr. K, because I in the moment, like, I talk about all the things that I do in the fear and whatnot, but it never would stop me from wanting to go on an airplane. Does that make sense? It never wants to, because I, like, love the idea of flight and, like, flying flight simulator, like, I love that. I love everything that goes into it. I watch plane videos, like, it's something that I like, still to
Yeah.
this day, I'm never
So
gonna be a commercial airline pilot
yeah.
anymore, but
So
I still really enjoy it. Sorry, go
So
ahead,
here we
sorry.
go. Okay. So, like, here's the thing: you get on the flight, and Austin loves flying. And Austin's mom, whose voice he's internalized, because that's what we do, Austin's mom's voice pops into your head and is like, you're going to die. And then there's like a
They
conflict between these two things because your mom taught you, right?
yeah,
Like, they teach us things.
yeah,
Like, I try to teach my kids to, like, flush the toilet.
yeah,
And so, like, what's happening in their tiny little mind, and, like, even my So my youngest daughter does this thing where she likes to get off of the potty and then wipe herself.
Uh-huh.
And then like that makes wiping way harder, right? Like wiping is easier when you're on the potty. So I
Right.
like tried to teach her like we wipe on the potty.
Oh, I wipe off the potty, Dr. K, but I mean, well, actually,
For
I use
number
a
two?
bidet now. Yeah, I use a bidet now, but like
Okay, well,
before I
yeah.
used to stand up. I mean, this is a whole nother debate.
Okay, anyway. Let's not even go there.
I have no
Okay.
problem. Okay, anyway. So,
If
do
you
you
want
use
me to judge you for
bidets are
being
great.
if you want me to judge you for being a sick bastard, we have to talk about your wiping habits. Okay. No, but like, so here's the thing. So now what she does is like when she's on the potty, she literally says the words, "We wipe on the potty." And I'm like, yes, we wipe on the potty. She has internalized my voice because internalizing the voice of our parents is what we call, any idea?
Oh God. Is this a quiz?
Yes, I'm putting you on the spot. This is
Internalizing
Dr. K show.
our parents. Oh
Voice
gosh.
is something that we call, it's a read my mind question.
Oh,
It's a hard
I
question.
talked to K.
Learning.
Okay, learning.
Learning.
Okay, it was
That's
that
what learning
simple?
is.
Okay, learning.
Yeah, it's the hardest questions are the simplest ones.
Right,
Okay.
got it. Yeah, got it.
Right.
Makes sense.
So like that's literally what learning is. Like we don't even think about what learning is. Like we just like
Yeah.
use the word, but like literally learning is like the process of internalizing things around us and like making it a part of our thought process. So like racism is learned, right? Like
Right.
like it becomes internal, and then once we learn something, it sort of like pops up, it starts generating certain thoughts because like we understand it now. And so what I think happened in your case is, and this is just a preliminary thought, right? Is that like your mom taught you, and that's the way I want you to think about your anxiety. It's not that it's irrational, it's that it's taught. She like literally taught you that like if you put on a bike helmet, if you don't put on a bike helmet, you're gonna get a TBI and you're gonna die. If you ever drink alcohol, you're gonna die. If you ever do this, you're gonna die. And then we see that in your mind, there's like Austin, who loves planes, and then there's your mom's voice, who's like, you're gonna die. And then what happens is you're like, that doesn't make sense, because Austin is like, no, I'm not gonna die. And then like they have a little war in your head, and then you pull out your phone, and then you start to pull out all your things. And then what you do is you kind of calm down the anxiety. But actually what you're doing is feeding it, because you're not getting to the root of where it comes from. You're like alleviating it from the top. It's like the root is not reassurance. You need to challenge the very idea that you're going to die.
That for me, that's a challenge, because if I don't know how to explain this, but it's this feeling of, if I let my guard down, I'm going to die. If I'm letting, and it doesn't even make sense, because let's face it, Dr. K, if I'm flying at 35,000 feet and I'm going to die, I can't, it doesn't matter. I'm going to die. Right. That's just what's going to happen. If your plane's going down, me in the back with my iPhone, looking up the flight and the airspeed isn't going to change my,
Yeah, so this is where we learn how to do things like sit with it, okay? So now, like, I'm going to give you an alternate scenario. I think if you want your anxiety to improve over time, first thing that you've got to do is, like, let yourself die, bro. Like, when you're sitting there, there's, like, recognize, first of all, that, like, Austin loves flying. Like Austin's like, I love this stuff. And then there's this other part of you. So we could call it the voice of your mom, but maybe she's just a contributor. So I'll talk about that in a second, because it may not be the voice of your mom.
Right.
In the second, there's just your anxiety. So your anxiety, like, I want you to think about it like Austin's not a single player game. It's like a party RPG. And you've got a bunch of characters in there. And you've got Austin, right, who's like your protagonist. And then you have your anxiety, which is actually a really important member of your party. It's not actually irrational and bad. It's not an enemy. This is what people think. Like, when we start calling it mental illness, which, could be apply, but we think about it as an enemy. But you got to understand, your anxiety is helping you out, bro. Your anxiety is the part of your mind which looks into the future, predicts danger, and makes sure you don't screw up. It's the same part of your mind that is telling you, hey, it's time to start calling myself Raj Patel.
Or Austin.
Yeah, right? Like, it's saying, like, hey, like, if I continue doing this, bad things could happen. And, like, how is that not a good part of your party?
Right.
Like, anxiety is protective. That's why we have it. Like human beings, like why does the human brain think about terrible things happening to us? Because back when we were like monkeys in the jungle, we were walking around and we would see a tiger footprint. And there were two kinds of monkeys. One monkey was like, oh shit, there's probably a tiger behind that bush. Even though the likelihood that the tiger behind the bush was low, you just need a little bit of information and then you project danger. And then there was the monkey that was like, NBD. And one of them got eaten and one of them didn't.
Yeah.
And so anxiety is adaptive. It's
But
worse. Yeah.
why do we still have those types of people that like, why do we, like, we still have those people that like my friends that I like fly with, they get on the plane and, they order a drink and they're just, they don't care. And they just sit
Sure.
there and no matter what happens, what movement, they're just,
Yeah. So great question. So now we get to like, okay, where does your anxiety come from? So here are the two hypotheses. One is they didn't have your mom,
mhm,
right? So like when when I went on a flight, my dad did the opposite. I would be
okay.
anxious and he would be like, it's going to be okay. And he's like, it's going to rumble for a while. And then also I had like particular experiences that I remember like cognitively. Like I remember I used to be scared of flights and then I would start playing the Super Mario music in my head because sometimes in Super Mario like you'd get launched somewhere
Uh-huh.
and it would be
I've
like,
tried that.
and so like I started playing like literally in my mind, I started playing the Super Mario music in my head. And I'd
Yeah.
pretend that I was like Mario flying through space. And like
I
that seemed to help.
I tried something like that. I would I would try to turn on, like, happy, like, music that, like, would sort of bring me to, like, a normal place. So I actually, like, started playing and I only did this for a brief period of time, and then it's frustrating because I
So
know I'm trying to distract
no,
myself,
no,
so
no.
my
So
mind will
this
go,
is the difference. I wasn't trying to distract myself. I was trying to change. I was sitting with the feeling of flying and changing the framework around it. I wasn't trying to distract myself at all.
"Okay."
Does that
See,
make
that's
sense?
yeah, okay, yeah. Because when I think, because I tried playing the song "Big Old Jet Airliner" by Steve Miller, "Dun, dun, dun, big old jet airliner," and it was like a happy, like,
Yeah.
going on the
It,
road and doing, like, fun stuff, and, like, I would listen to that on takeoff, which is, like, the part of the flight where I'm, like, most anxious, and in my head, like, it kinda helped a little bit, but I just stopped doing it because, again, I feel like if I'm actively trying to, and again, I understand what you said, by the way, about how you were doing it, but in my head, I was like, I know intuitively what I'm doing is trying to take my mind off of the anxiety around flight, and in my head, that's letting my guard down, and I must be ready to look at
yeah.
everything and know what's happening all the time.
Yeah,
So that's
so let's just clarify for a second. I get that you understood what I said, so I'm going to explain it just as clearly as I can. So, when you face anxiety, you've got a couple of options. One
okay,
is to distract yourself, one is to feed it or reassure yourself by
right,
giving into it. Okay? The third
okay.
option is to be with it but like not do anything. And somehow I was lucky enough to stumble on, I think it's just random chance. It's not like I was
Sure,
smart or anything.
sure,
It was
sure.
just like I just stumbled on like this way of sitting fully with my feelings. I wasn't trying to move away from them. I just sort of pretended it was like in a different context. And even now I find myself doing that on flights for a few seconds and I still feel uncomfortable. And like I sit with the feeling kind of fully. And so you can kind of sit with it, which is what I think you need to learn how to do. But that's challenging because it's sort of like sitting with like a hungry stomach, right? So like it's gonna want things and it's gonna like grab at you, Austin. It's gonna be like,
Yeah.
I need this. I
Yeah,
give
give
this to
me
me. Give this to me. Give this to me.
so I have a question. When
Yeah.
you're
Yeah. No,
finished, I
go
have a
for it.
question. Why do I feel? Because 'cause I'm not, like, completely I don't want you don't I'm not anxious throughout the entire, like, there are moments of flight where I feel calm, but not consistently, like, it just
Sure.
depends, right? So it varies by flight, right? There are moments during the flight where I am calm, but then but that's when, we're flying smoothly, we're at cruise altitude, everything's smooth. As soon as we hit a bump, um, my heart starts racing, the phone's out again, looking, at the weather, like what's going to happen, how long are we going to be flying through this. I do things like I go like, I'm taking you through exactly like if you were watching me on a plane, I go like this. I like I grab onto myself, like I claw onto myself, like I
Hmm.
grab onto things, like I put my hands in my face. I start to like panic during turbulence and thing. And the crazy thing about this, Dr. K, is I understand logically that turbulence and the forces on Earth have literally never taken down a commercial aircraft. There was one incident of it, and it was like in the 60s, back when planes were made out of cardboard, or whatnot. But it's just not rational in the modern world for turbulence to impact the aircraft. But for me, the the thought in my head at that moment is when I feel the turbulence, I know turbulence isn't crazy, but like I can't assume, like what if it wasn't turbulence? What if something else is going wrong? Like
Yeah. So
what if we are in that crazy type of turbulence that could impact the aircraft, So
sure. Yeah. So we're going to talk about some scars and kind of getting
I have had some traumatic experience flying, and I don't know if that helps or not, but
that certainly hurts.
yeah, and I'll tell you, my anxiety around flying has gotten worse since this one particular experience, and
Yeah.
I
So
can describe it to you if you want.
sure, go for it.
I went on a flight from, and this might not have even been bad because it just felt bad, right? I went on a flight from Los Angeles to Nashville, and on Southwest Airlines, and we were in there, and the pilot came over and he said, "Hey, we're experiencing some, you know, we're about to experience some severe turbulence, and the flight attendants are going to be seated. Nothing normal." Or abnormal. I don't know if he used the word severe. I can't recall exactly, but he said, some significant turbulence. And we told him to seat the flight attendants. The flight attendants were seated, and then the flight attendants came over to reiterate how like critical it was that you were in your seat because some people don't usually take it seriously. Um, and I and they mentioned that it was a thunderstorm. And this, I was still, I'll admittedly, I was looking at my phone at this time, like checking weather and still doing those sorts
Sure.
of things. Um, and so I look, and there was a thunderstorm that extended the entire central United States, and it was almost impossible to fly around. And being somebody that knows aviation, one of the more dangerous things to aircraft is severe thunderstorms because that's like something that can actually impact airspeed. And when you impact airspeed, there's it's just all sorts of like things that go through my head. Um, so I'm a little scared, right? I'm a little scared, and but not like crazy scared because again, this is I've been through stuff. This didn't seem bad, but immediately we start going through, and let me tell you, the plane was thrashing. People were screaming. I look up the aisle. People are holding hands. I was holding hands with a woman next to me. I was like, oh my god. I was like on the verge of tears. There was a guy next to me rubbing my shoulder, and other people were freaking out. And in that experience, I can hear the engines going because when you're in turbulence and the plane is like going through this, like pilots often step climb and go up and down altitudes to try to find smooth air. But in my head in that moment, I'm not sure what's going on because I can't see anything. So and we're in a black cloud. You look outside the window, it's black out there and you can't see anything. So there's no frame of reference. You feel the plane going up and down, you hear the engines, and it was just very, very like scary. It very, very traumatizing to me. I was shaking. I remember I was so like happy that like it was over with that I bought like the entire people around me drinks. I said, "Drinks on me. I'm so happy to be alive. Who wants a drink?" I don't even drink, Dr. K. As I said, like I don't I got a drink because I was like, let's celebrate. And so I bought drinks. I said, "Drinks on everybody." And I bought everybody like I don't remember what it was, but everybody get drinks. And thank God the whole plane didn't go want drinks because then
Yeah.
it would have been a serious bill. But that was an experience that I had that was very traumatizing. And then I had a similar experience, not as bad, but going into Las Vegas. You know how Las Vegas is from LA to Las Vegas is notoriously bad for like turbulence and stuff. I went into Las Vegas, crazy updrafts. And I was sitting next to this girl, this Australian girl, and I was like going through my panicky thing. And she looks at me and she says, "You're not going to die." And like, like that I was being so irrational. and, you know, anyway,
Yeah.
but that's
So
just sort of I was just that's just sort of like the experience that I had after the fact.
how does it feel to
And
share those
thankfully nothing
stories?
happened, but still. But yeah, that's sort of what
Not, no,
happened.
no, no. It's not nothing happened, but still. But let's start with this. How does
Okay.
that? How does it feel to share that?
I mean, I've shared it before. I might have even shared it on stream, but it feels like I feel happy to be that I survived that, you know? Like, even though, I know that we probably were never in danger ever, but still I felt like I was, and I feel like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
survived it
So
and I feel good about that.
let's think
I'm so
about
happy to be on the
this.
ground.
So what does that do to your anxiety? Does it increase it or decrease it?
Like when I talk about it,
Let's start with the experiences.
the experience, like I talk about it and I laugh about it right now because I'm on the ground and
Yep.
I'm not going on a plane. But when I get on the plane, and I'm not necessarily saying I consciously think about that one particular experience, but when I get
No,
on a
no.
plane, I start to fear that I'm going to go through that again.
Absolutely.
And so
Right. So
every
like
time the plane
here's
starts to jump or anything,
so
I
here
get
here's
really
the thing,
anxious.
Austin. You have just fed your anxiety so much. Not your fault. Right.
Mhm.
But like, because the thing is, like, the voice of, let's just assume for a second it's the voice of your mom, and we got to go back and kind of talk about how it couldn't, may not be. But I'm just going to call it that. So the voice of your mom is like, just think about all the times that she told you to do something and then you sort of deviated off course, and how much she like even more flipped her shit.
Right.
She's like, you got to wear your helmet, otherwise you're going to die. And then you wear your helmet.
I have an interesting thing about the helmet thing. It happened later in life though, and I don't know if it really
Let's steer
oh,
clear of
good,
stories
good.
for a second.
Sure,
But,
sorry, sorry.
it sounds to me like you should definitely find someone to talk to, because it sounds like you have a lot
Yeah,
to
I've
say,
got a lot to say. Yeah, yeah,
which is
sorry,
good.
sorry.
Right. So
Sorry,
like
yeah.
this is how, no, no, don't apologize. It's just like, this is how emotional processing works. Like, the stuff has to come
Mhm,
out.
mhm, mhm.
Right. It's not like reassurance. It's like you just got to like go back to those feelings. And actually, what you need to do is like sit with those feelings and not, and kind of like decompress them. So it's almost sort of like exposure therapy, where what you do is, like, if you're afraid of dogs, like, you just go and you like look at a dog, and then you let those feelings arise, and then you don't go anywhere with them. You don't run away from the dog, and then you don't like force yourself to pet the dog, because that's irrational. And so you got to force yourself to, no, you just like sit with it, and you let the feelings come up, you let them just hang out for a while, and you do nothing. And so sometimes in therapy, like, that's something that people do. There's like a technique called EMDR that has, mixed evidence behind it, but some people find it very useful, where you like recall a traumatic experience, but you're basically doing sort of like a meditation kind of thing while you're recalling the experience. So your mind can't fully go back into that space. It's sort of like half here and half there, which allows you to sort of like swim in that water, which without getting sunk, going under. Anyway, in your case, I think what's happening is like those kinds of things are feeding your anxiety, because remember, before that happened, everything was irrational. But now your anxiety is like, but that almost happened. Right? It's like, this is everything we were afraid of. And like, sure, we made it this time. Like, before that, like, you had a 1 in 100 chance of going down in a thunderstorm. Before the thunderstorm, it was like 1 in a million. And now your anxiety is like, if that happens 99 more times, we're fucked. Right? The Las Vegas is like 1 in 2,000. But like, the thing is it's like, it's reinforcing the basic idea that your anxiety has, that like things can go wrong on a plane. And this is the other really weird thing, is that your knowledge of aviation, do you think that makes your anxiety better or makes it worse?
I almost wonder if it makes it worse because I know what can go wrong on a plane,
Yeah.
and it's not perfect.
So this is where I want you to just, oh man, there's just so much to explain. But okay. So like, I want you to understand that like, what happens is your knowledge of the airplane is hijacked by your anxiety. That which should reassure you because you know all the statistics actually somehow gets like hijacked by the the anxiety to like be used against you. It's like
Mm,
Austin knows like, oh, like actually flying is safe, and like, you know, I, I can't, I've never met a person who knows when the last accident related to turbulence was. I've like literally never met that person
It
before.
was in Fiji in 1960 something, I forget
Right?
exactly.
So
Boeing 707,
that's
anyway.
what anxious people are like. They
Yeah,
have all kinds, they understand what they're anxious about in and out, and it only seems to make things worse.
right.
Whereas we have this assumption that the more you learn about something, the more your anxiety should go down. You should be reassured by knowledge, but if we actually look at the data, that's not how it works. Knowledge, and by the way, it's like if you read less about airplanes, I don't know that your anxiety would be less. I think it's just like it uses it. It uses
It
your anxiety is going to use whatever it can in your mind because anxiety is a feeling and it's going to wrap whatever logical shit it can to like bring into itself. It doesn't matter.
like, I have a question, and
Yeah.
maybe this is I wanna know if this is unhealthy, because I genuinely enjoy it. It doesn't make me anxious in the moment, um, but I do watch, like, aircraft disaster things, like disaster, YouTube video, seen those?
Okay.
Like, I do that because I enjoy, like, the educational portion of it, like, what happened, what went wrong, um, but, like, I don't know, like, I don't know if this is like a sort of like a I know it sounds so dumb, like, why would you watch that if you're afraid of it? But it's almost like I want my justification in my head is, number 1, I, like, enjoy, like, seeing the aviation portion, I like it. But number 2, I wanna know what went wrong and what steps they took to fix it. So, like, now I know when I go on a plane that the likelihood of that particular situation isn't gonna happen again, sort of thing.
Yeah,
Does that
so
make
I
sense?
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So the short answer is like yes and no. Is it a good idea or a bad idea? So it's fine because remember that Austin likes aviation. That has nothing to do with your anxiety.
Right.
Like if it's not triggering for you, I think it's fine to watch it. And we see the second piece too, which is that the reassurance piece is actually feeding your anxiety. But anything you do to reassure yourself is going to feed anxiety.
Right.
You see that?
Yeah, and I'm not actively thinking about these disaster videos in flight, like, "Oh, I'm gonna be that flight." I'm
Yeah,
just
so
thinking
I
of
mean it sounds like
disaster
it's
going
like
wrong.
I think that the solution to your anxiety does not involve, in a significant way, stopping to watch YouTube videos about aviation.
Okay,
I think the solution to your anxiety is like pretty simple, and it's like the solution to like most anxiety, which we'll get to in a
right,
second. But let's go back to the origin for a second, okay?
okay.
So, is this the voice of your mom? That's what it sounds like, right? That's the best example of a smoking gun that we've got. But there are a couple of other things which I want to clue people in on. So, first of all, really interesting study, okay? So they took kids diagnosed with anxiety who had parents who had diagnosis of anxiety. And they found that treating the parent actually treats the child.
Even after the fact or just while they're a child? Like,
No, no. So
during
like if I take a child, like a 10-year-old with an anxiety disorder, and I take their 35-year-old mom with an anxiety disorder, and I
Oh,
give the 10-year-old medication, and I in one group I medicate the child, and in the other group I medicate the mom, both results are the same.
wow, that's incredible.
Crazy.
Because the source of the anxiety is the theory that the source of the anxiety came from the mother or the person with the anxiety?
Yeah, sort of. Like that's what the data suggests, right? So then there are a couple of other things. So we know that anxiety disorders run in families. So there is an
Mm,
inherited component. So there may just be something, and I don't think it's just your mom. So I think your brain, Austin, as evidenced by your professional success, is very good at projecting catastrophe, which actually helps you succeed professionally. Because your brain is capable of considering ups and downs that the average person may not be able to consider, which is adaptive and beneficial to you. So you've avoided certain pitfalls, and
so
you've also capitalized on some low possibility things because you were able to predict them. Because all anxiety is your predictive capability, right? The better you are at predicting, the worse your anxiety is going to be.
yeah, I can see that.
So one thing is that like you may just have an inherited component, which may not be like due to the environment of your mom. It could just be like genetically your neurons are sort of wired to be like a little bit more anxious. You probably have high trait neuroticism, which is another personality component.
Sure.
Second
I
thing is that go ahead.
No, you go ahead. No, please.
So
No, I want, yeah,
second thing
I
is
need to
that
listen
like
better. I need to learn to listen. Sorry.
second thing is that I do think that it sort of makes sense to me that you were taught to be fearful. You were taught to be fearful. So that's how I would reframe your anxiety, is like, this is your conditioning. It's not irrational, it's conditioning. And conditioning can absolutely be irrational. Like, then you're like, why am I this way? It's because you're fucking conditioned. And that solves everything.
It's weird. I'm starting to think because my mother, like, but my dad is also kind of paranoid. Like, he's kind of paranoid too. Like, I'm not saying, I don't think when I think of somebody that has anxiety, I think of my mom because she like shares many traits with me in terms of like my personality, um, and stuff. But my dad is also paranoid in like different areas. Like, my dad will walk on a plane and, he'll eat an edible and he'll be passed out and doesn't care, right? Doesn't care, doesn't give a rip, just chilling with his coffee, chilling and, whatever. Or he'll go someplace and not worry about anything. Yeah, now everybody knows where I got it from. No, I'm just kidding. But my dad, like, he's also very like paranoid about other things. Like, he's like different things that are different from my mother. Like, it's different aspects of life. I'm trying to think of like
And,
an example,
and is your
but
mind a combination of those two?
people often say that I have my personalities like my mother and my like more people say like my more like, if you will, like I'm trying to think of it. Like, personality mother, people say that my dad is very much like a um like sort of like my more like my more rational side, if you will. Like,
Okay.
I don't want to say my mom's
No,
irrational, but like
no,
my more
yeah.
like
So,
like in if I hadn't, and I'm not saying my mom's stupid, right? But if I had like a more intellectual, like critical thinking side, it would be from my dad, right? Not to
okay.
say that my mom's not that way, but that like
So,
my habits. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
so Austin, I'm just noticing there's a lot left to talk about. So we'll talk about how to talk about what's left to talk about, because I don't want to give you the sense that I'm not offering you a complete picture. I'm giving you like 10%, because
Sure.
there's individuals are like, I'm going to share a couple principles with you. We can talk a little bit more about that, but I want to get to a couple of other things just about, generally speaking, the origin of anxiety. So one is that we can think that you are conditioned. So the other big place that anxiety comes from is actually what I asked you earlier about, like, so you can learn to be afraid of catastrophe in two ways. One is that you can be taught to be afraid of catastrophe by like your parents, or you can actually have faced catastrophe before. And then your mind, then it's no longer theoretical, right? Because if it's happened to you, then it's actually a possibility. And so I'll just give you like an example, which of a patient of mine who um, has allowed me to share this component because she thinks it would be helpful. So she's someone who had anxiety for like 17 years, and then had this, like, and it was irrational, right? Like, she would always like think about horrible things going wrong. And the more that we kind of talked about her, so she had lost her father due to cancer, and so like that had been explored in therapy as well, and like she had kind of talked about the loss and how that was like sad and grievous and all that kind of stuff. And so she's sort of been like, okay, so like lost dad, like sometimes that leads to an anxiety disorder. Didn't seem to be the case. She was actually anxious before she lost her dad. So the question is like, when did you become anxious? So like, it turns out that the root of her anxiety is that when she was like 6 or 7, she knew her dad had cancer. She like knew something was wrong, and everyone told her everything was okay. But in her heart of hearts, she felt like something was true, and she was taught that she was irrational, when in fact she's been right all along. And so her sense of what is real and unreal got fucked up at a young age. And the second she, not the second, but over the course of a couple of weeks, is she realized that like her freedom from anxiety was not in calling it irrational, it was in recognizing that it's actually very rational. It's the opposite. And then she got better. Because she's like, oh, like these feelings that I have are not wrong, they're actually right. And that allowed her to sit with them. And it's like, your fears are real, they're not wrong. And the whole reason that her anxiety never gets better is because she actually like invalidates her feelings and she assumes she's irrational. She assumes something is broken when actually it's working fine. And then like, how the fuck, like, no wonder you can't drive your car properly because you're pretending like you have a flat and your tire is fine. Right? So anxiety, in my experience, comes from two places, either conditioning or an event where the catastrophe actually happened. And then it's like no longer irrational for you. It's a reality. It actually happened. So this is why, like, you know, people who have bad shit happen to them develop anxiety disorders. Because like something happens where that 1 in a million thing, like I had another patient who was like attacked in a gas station bathroom by like a 13-year-old male patient who was attacked in a bathroom by like a 30-year-old truck driver, like sexually, like in a gas station bathroom. And like after that, he's got anxiety because think about the worst thing that you could possibly think about when you're 13 and think about how irrational it is for that shit to happen. And then this happens to you. And the low likelihood of the world getting hit by a meteor is actually like, this is way worse. And the worst thing can happen to you.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Is there such thing as a combination of both? Like,
absolutely.
sort of okay.
So that's why
'Cause
like
the yeah.
so I think if you feel like your mom is not all of the picture, I don't suspect one of the hypotheses is that something happened to you that felt incredibly catastrophic, that because of the way that your mind tends to discount the way that you feel because you're irrational and you just invalidate yourself all the time. I don't even know that you're able to like go back there because you probably felt like it was so stupid and insignificant.
And that my mind that I can't even remember because I
Right.
wrote it off?
Exactly. Exactly. And this is exactly what happened with the other patient, which is that she thought that actually losing her dad is so much more of a logical thing that should contribute to anxiety than knowing that your dad was sick. Because like her actual memories where the anxiety was born was like seeing like they would like her dad wouldn't go into work one day and he'd like go to the clinic and they'd like drop him off to get chemotherapy. And then she'd be like, what, why are we here? And they're like, oh, not everything's okay. Everything's okay. And then her dad would like come back from chemotherapy and he'd be like, he'd look sick. He'd be like sunken and he'd lose weight. And she's like, what's wrong with dad? And they'd say, nothing. And actually, that's way worse than losing him because she was 6. And then when she was like 18 and her dad was actually dying, she could understand what was happening. And also, they were telling her reality. Right? Her disconnection, if you think about anxiety, you keep on saying it's so rational, it's so rational. That disconnection from reality happens at 6 because she actually got disconnected from reality. And so it's not irrational for your mind to be disconnected from reality because that's what you learned. You learned that everything that you feel is not actually correct. That's what she learned. Right? And somewhere along the way, you learned this stuff. You're not broken, man. Like, it's just how your mind has learned how to function.
Yeah.
So there may be an experience somewhere in there where like you felt like it could be something dumb, like forgetting your homework. And it could be something where like you were afraid. Are you getting emotional?
No, I'm
Okay.
good. It's
Okay.
like it's very powerful what you said because
Yeah.
I've always thought of it as saying it's irrational. I've always thought irrational, rational, rational, and I've harked on that. And I thought that was a productive thing to do. Like my fear is irrational. That's all that I thought that that was like a solution to
No,
the
but
problem,
so
you
Austin,
know?
I return you to what I said earlier about being scientific. Everyone thinks that their fear is irrational, and what does it do to their anxiety?
Doesn't help it.
Absolutely. So that's not a useful framework because data suggests it doesn't work. So let's stop thinking it, even though we think it's right. It sounds rational for us to approach anxiety as irrational, right? But it's just not because it doesn't work. It doesn't mirror actual reality. So we need to be more open minded.
Right. I'd never thought of it that way ever. I don't
Yeah.
think.
So
Maybe I heard it in passing, but this is like
So
Anyway,
the last thing is that, are your parents to blame? Because I think in order for you to understand where this comes from, you have to let your parents take some responsibility for this. So I want to help you do that. And let me just say this, no matter how good of a parent you are, there's going to be collateral damage for your kids. Doesn't mean that they did a bad job. It's clear that they did a great job. And they're not perfect, nor should we expect them to be perfect. And they kind of screw you up in some ways, which is what parents do. Like my kids are going to be screwed up in some ways. It doesn't, like, there's just no way to avoid that. Like, it's just, like, the goal is for parents to be like good enough, right? It's not for them to be perfect. And it's okay. Like my parents, like I'm a pretty healthy human being and I'm grateful for my upbringing. I think my parents are awesome. And they screwed me up in some ways. That's just part of life. Like there is no parent-child relationship I've ever seen, no matter how good the parent is, where the child is not a little bit fucked up. Just how it works. They do the best that they can, and then you try to, because I'm sure there are some things you've already decided that you're going to do differently from your parents. If you ever have
yeah,
kids. I don't know if you have kids. And everyone thinks that. And that doesn't make your parents bad. It's just like they're not perfect. And I think, we definitely see it's interesting because when we hear about your mom and in this kind of, this conditioning and all that kind of crap, and it's actually borne out in evidence as well that like if maybe your mom had been treated, you may not have had the anxiety that you do today. We don't blame her for that because she did the best that she could. Right? It's in the same way that we don't blame you for calling yourself Raj Patel a while ago because you didn't know any better. Like, is it wrong? Sure, but like we don't blame you for it. Because in the same way, like, could she have done better? Sure, but we don't blame her for it. Like, she did the best that she could. She did a really good job. We can be grateful and be like, oh, okay, so like now we know that. Does that make sense?
yeah, it makes sense. So I do have a question though,
Yeah.
and this is the hard part that I have with this in associating blame to my parents because and this has sort of been the process of getting older, and maybe people can relate to this, but when you grow up, you sort of have a perfect image of your parents, and they can do no wrong, that sort of thing. And the idea to like say blame, it just like I don't know why, and I understand what you're saying, but in my mind immediately goes to as soon as I would say blame to my parents, that would implicate them as like being just bad. Just because like how people perceive, if that's the only thing people have heard from my parents that they were the reason why I'm so anxious, I'm afraid that they would think that they're bad parents. And you logically, you being who you are, I understand that you wouldn't get it that way, but I don't want anybody else to think that way or like the public image of them being like bad parents. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's just where, like, as human beings, we need to be more nuanced,
right.
right? So, like, I'll share with you another story if that's okay.
Yeah,
So
sure. Go ahead,
I had
please.
another patient who also is, okay with me sharing this. That like,
Yep.
so he also, lost a parent when he was young, and then I would ask him about like, what was your other parent like, and he said my other parent did the best that they could, and I sort of like thought it was weird that like, okay, fine, they did the best they, of course, right? That's what all parents do is they did the best that they could, but like I was like, how's your dad? He's like, he did the best that he could. And then we kind of talked a little bit, and turns out that like after work, his dad would like usually go to the bar and like have a couple beers with his friends, and that was like kind of a daily occurrence. And he was grieving and stuff like that. So patient didn't really blame him. He's like, he's like the dude lost a wife. It's got to be tough. He did the best that he could. Funny thing though is that like he never says that his dad did a great job. He says that his dad did the best that he could. Right. So there's no blame, but there's also like a subtle under the surface acknowledgement that like, I mean, his son had lost a mother, and he, instead of coming home because he had certain needs of like dealing with his own emotions, like hung out at a bar. And it's really hard to blame him for that, but it's really important to do that. Right? It's one thing, because here's the problem that he had. He couldn't forgive his dad, because you can't forgive someone unless they did something wrong. And in his mind, he was making excuses. So, like, there's no chance for forgiveness. So, oddly enough, his path forward was to acknowledge that, like, his dad did the best that he could. I don't blame him for that, and forgive him for being not a perfect parent. And now he's fine. Like, it's like been settled. Like, he doesn't hold a grudge. He doesn't talk shit about his dad. No one thinks his dad is a bad person. That's where conflation happens. That's where, like, pitchforks come out.
Mhm.
Right. And like, and this is where, like, you have to, I think it's healthy as a child to recognize that your parents are flawed because they're not perfect. It's healthy. You have to grow into recognizing that your parents did the best that they could, and you don't blame them for that. But they could have fucked a couple of things up, and like that's actually okay. Like we need to live in a world where instead of expecting people to be perfect, we need to like understand that they're not and like actually be okay with that. It's about sitting with it, right? Not making it go away, not treating it, not discounting with it, just sitting with it and saying, that's the way they are. They're not perfect. And I'm grateful to them. I mean, I think there's no doubt in anyone's mind who's watched this whole stream that you were incredibly grateful to your parents and they're incredibly proud of you. And just because your anxiety is related to them doesn't change any of that. We need to be able to hold two contrary concepts in our mind, which is not something that we're good at as a society. I love planes. I have a fear of flying. Those can absolutely coexist, right? Someone is a bad person, and I mean, this is going to be kind of controversial, but like this is just what I've, when you work with criminals, sometimes you begin to see that people can do deplorable things, but it doesn't make them absolute incarnations of evil, right? That sometimes, like it's bizarre, like when you work with someone who is a sexual abuser, who in turn was sexually abused. Does it absolve them of responsibility of their actions? Absolutely not. Should they be punished? Absolutely. And like sometimes there should be room for compassion. I'm not asking anyone to do that. That's been my personal experience. That I have come to deal with people, and the more that I see the world as less black and white, I'm not trying to be an apologist for rape or anything like that. I mean, I think they deserve to be in jail. And also, like, once they're in jail, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't. I personally choose to try to be compassionate towards as many people as I can, which I'm not expecting other people to do. But what I want to say, talk about things being misinterpreted and conflated in the internet, targeting and feathering you. But what I want to say is that we should be able to hold two things at the same time, right? That your parents did a wonderful job and they weren't perfect. And that like you need to get your own anxiety disorder, if you have one, treated if you get kids.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
I've been very against medicating myself for anxiety, and I know I don't smoke weed for my anxiety. In fact, sometimes it makes it incredibly worse. I smoke weed because it makes food taste good, and and other stuff feel good. Um, but I've been very against medication. Do you have like a particular stance on that?
Sure. I think if you're against medication, don't take medication.
Fair enough. That's what I feel like it's cheating, and I'm almost anxious to take. Like, this is
I
kind
mean,
of messed up.
have you
Go
seen a
ahead.
psychiatrist or like had an evaluation for anxiety?
No,
I would
it's just sort of known that I have it, and like it's a problem,
Okay,
basically.
so I would start there. Okay.
Okay.
And um I would start there. And then, I would listen to the options. So be careful about the kind of like mental health treatment provider you go to, because some psychiatrists are psychopharmacologists, which means that they will see like 3 to 4 patients an hour and they basically
Psych
prescribe medications. And
right.
that's literally
It's
what their
almost
job is. Like it's like a
yeah,
psychopharmacology position.
yeah.
So in my experience, so just a couple of things about data. Okay, so let's talk about data for a second.
Mhm.
Psychotherapy is about as effective as medication. They're just as good. Psychotherapy plus medication outperforms either one alone. In my personal experience, I prescribe medications to about 20 to 30% of my patients. So sometimes, like the real question about medication, it's not like a value judgment or anything like that. I think it's just like a tool in your tool belt. And you shouldn't have a bias against it or think that it's like, people do think it's sort of like a crutch or a weakness or things like that. I mean, I prescribe medication depending on what's going on.
I'm not afraid of it being like a stigma. I'm just like afraid of what it would do to my mind, like
Sure, that's
how
a
it would,
valid, yeah,
or
that's
if I
a,
wanted to fit the withdrawals associated with it.
Yeah, so I think that's something you should bring up with your providers. I get that fear a lot and I manage it pretty well. I'll tell people, okay, like here's what I understand about withdrawals and things like that. So the first thing I would tell you is that for the most part, your brain is developed. So developing brains are more vulnerable than developed brains because your brain is like growing with this chemical around, right? Still, at the same time, like, sometimes 16-year-olds get prescribed antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications. That's fine. I think
Is
generally, yeah.
is it weird that, like, I'm afraid to take like, I'm not prescribed it, but, like, the idea of taking, uh what do they call that medication that just like it's like one of those you're not supposed to take it all the time. It's an anxiety medication. Oh
Xanax?
god. Xanax. Yeah. I'd be afraid to take it because I'd afraid that it would kill me or something. Even though like even if it was prescribed to me, I'd be afraid that it would kill me or like something would happen bad if
Yeah,
I
so
took it.
that is okay, this is kind of a loaded term. That's an irrational fear, right?
Okay.
So most fear by definition is irrational because it's an emotion. It's a different part of the brain. At the same time, I think it's completely reasonable and rational for you to have that fear,
Mhm.
right? So like fears aren't rational by their nature. I think you should be concerned about Xanax. So I do my level best to never prescribe Xanax personally, because it's highly addictive
Mm.
and it works entirely too well.
That's part of my fear is that I would get addicted to it because it would work so well.
Yeah,
Like, if
so
you know, I
that's
was anxious, I would take it and it would get away my anxiety and just the frequency of how
oh
often
yeah.
I am I would be taking it every
Yep.
time I felt like in
Yep.
one of these spots,
So
and
in
it
my
would just
training program, like they really taught us, conditioned us to fear Xanax.
okay.
And like there's a pit in my stomach. I remember when I would work like inpatient, like so when people get hospitalized, when I look at the patient's medication list, anytime I saw Xanax, I like my like I would feel a pit in my stomach. I was like, oh fuck,
Yeah,
it's gonna be hard to deal with this person because it's hard to get off the medication. It's not the person's fault,
right.
right?
Is Xanax prescribed usually as like a as needed, or is it like sometimes prescribed like as like a
Generally, it's supposed to be used as needed, and there are like a handful of people for whom you can really get away with Xanax, and like those people are people who have like fears of flying or like public speaking, where like the as needed is not something that by definition can happen every day. Like someone who needs Xanax like 2 to 3 times a year would be the kind of person that I would prescribe Xanax for. Like there are other medications, and it's
got
completely
it.
reasonable for you to be afraid of medications.
I have
And
been prescribed something like I'm sorry, I interrupted you, go ahead.
go ahead.
I've been prescribed not Xanax, but some or other, hy hydroxyzine, is that correct?
Yeah.
Heard of that?
Yeah.
Hydroxyzine is typically used as like a anti, allergy, but
Mhm.
it also is used to be treated as anxiety, and
Yep.
also, it's sort of in the same family as Benadryl, just stronger, correct?
I don't know about stronger,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Okay,
everything else is correct.
okay. Yeah, so
So,
that's one of the things that I've
so
been
the
prescribed.
reason that a lot of people will use hydroxyzine is because it is a anti-anxiety agent that acts quickly. So there are two kinds of anti-anxiety agents. Those that lower your baseline level of anxiety. So those are not as needed medications. Those are things that you take every day. So if we think about heart disease, for example, there are medications that you take for your heart that will like lower your blood pressure on a daily basis. And then there are some acute blood pressure agents that we'll use to like in seconds, if you're having a heart attack, drop your blood pressure so that your heart can pump normally. Or anyway, that's not actually how they work, but
Mhm.
so that they're like in medicine, we have acute agents and then we have like long-term agents. And for anxiety treatment, there are both kinds. There are the kinds that you use for acute anxiety, and then there are those that you use to lower baseline levels of anxiety that people experience from day to day. The reason that a lot of people use hydroxyzine is because hydroxyzine is not habit forming. So it's not addictive like Xanax or benzodiazepines, which are addictive. They're basically like alcohol in like pill form and modified. Um, and so, it sort of makes sense. It signals to me that the prescriber who prescribed that to you is probably doing generally speaking, a good job.
Yeah, and I also expressed my, like, fear
Yeah.
of those benzos,
But
right, is that what
Austin, I would really recommend that you get a thorough mental health evaluation because there's a lot of information that we haven't talked about, which is actually really important in determining whether you have a true anxiety disorder. And
Mhm.
that includes like we haven't I don't ask some basic questions like how often do you have anxiety? Like
Was that a question did you
yeah, I'm
wanted
just
me to
giving
answer?
that as an example, right? So
Okay.
there's a lot of other stuff like I haven't asked you. So sometimes anxiety is related to actually physical conditions. So endocrine imbalances, like if you have your thyroid hormone is too high, there's a lot of other due diligence that needs to happen before someone diagnoses you with anxiety.
Okay.
What I tried to do today, and I guess now I'm sort of explaining myself, is explain that dealing with anxiety as a medical illness is actually a completely different thing than helping a human being understand how anxiety and their mind interact.
Right.
Both of those will hopefully alleviate anxiety, but one is like more educational, and like in terms of treatment, it sounds like you really do need an evaluation. So I would
I
strongly encourage you to get
I
one.
really want therapy for the because like
You
it
should get it.
anybody with anybody that has anxiety, like I have moments of clarity, and it's not like an everyday thing. There I go again. See, trying to justify that it's not,
That's
but
okay.
like it's absolutely crippling. It's crippling, and it sucks. You can't enjoy certain things that you want to enjoy because it's absolutely crippling to you, and it sucks. And I want it to just be away. I just don't want to have to worry about shit.
Yeah. So,
And
Austin, here's my general thought about medication, just strategically why I prescribe it. Okay.
yeah,
There are different options for you to no longer make it crippling. If you can engage in those, then I don't think you need medication. If you're unable to engage in those, that's what a pill is for, right? If you can meditate and do yoga and exercise, adjust your diet, get a nice Ayurvedic diet going and all this kind of crap, go to your therapist, and there aren't any like houses burning down, and you can afford to deal with the damage from anxiety while all this other stuff works, because that stuff takes time, then you don't need medication. The reason that I recommend medication is because, first of all, sometimes people have lifestyles where they can't do the other things, the non pharmacologic treatments for anxiety. So, depending on what your life is like, you may not be able to do that stuff. The second reason is because there's a certain acuity. Like, so sometimes if someone is depressed and they're on the cusp of getting fired, they don't have 6 to 8 months to start doing all this crap. They have to like do something now. Students is another good example. Like, if you're a sophomore in college and you're depressed, you don't have 9 months of, you can't be depressed for 2 semesters because that's going to tank your GPA. And then you're going to have to deal with that for the rest of your life. So it's like a very individual conversation about your circumstances, risks, benefits, and for you to make the right choice, like given all of these things. And you should probably also, as part of that, anxiety evaluation, get like certain lab tests and things like that. Because the last thing that you want to do is be talking to someone about your feelings when your thyroid hormone is way too high.
do
Because
they
that's
test
just,
those in general, like
it
physical?
depends. In general, it depends.
Okay.
Generally speaking, I test a lot of stuff for people with depression, less stuff for
Mm,
people with anxiety.
okay.
Because they can just ask you other questions that, like, if your thyroid was out of whack, like, you'd have other symptoms too.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I it's interesting you mentioned, well, I don't wanna tell my family that's probably not something I should get into,
Yep.
family history of, like,
And that's
certain
that's why this isn't medical advice, right? So
yeah,
if,
yeah,
if I was your
right,
doctor, we would definitely have to talk about that, because there's
right.
no way to make an accurate diagnosis without all of that information.
Is the thyroid associated with, anxiety?
Sure, if it's too high.
Interesting. Uh, I don't yeah,
Too low leads to depression, too high leads to anxiety.
interesting. Uh, it's just interesting. I'll share that with you off stream, why
Okay,
that's interesting another time, but yeah, it's
sure.
interesting.
Share it with an
Not me.
actual doctor, bro.
Yeah, I will.
Do
Well,
yourself a favor.
they know this, but I don't like, I've never had, like, a psychologist or anything like that. It's more of, like, been a general care physician,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it's more of like a yeah, like a f not me personally, I don't know, but see, I don't even know if my thyroid's been checked about that sort of thing. Um,
Yeah, you could
but,
talk to your primary care physician about it.
yeah, I thought that they would just do that in, like, a test given and also, like, my mom and I shared the same doctor for an extended period of time, and they knew about my mom's history, so you would think but anyway, sorry, that's probably another conversation.
Yeah, so here's what I just say real quick about that is that, like, there are a lot of things that doctors should do, and the reason that oftentimes they don't do them is not because they're bad doctors, but because they've just got way too much other shit to do.
Mhm, and it's hard for them to analyze their patients to the depth.
Yeah, so I think it just sort of depends on, like, I think it's good to have a conversation with your doctor about it, and like
Can
And
I tell
then
you something I've learned through this?
yeah.
My tendency to push things away and say, it's not a problem, or try to like be like, it's not an issue. I'm good. Like most of the time I'm good. That tendency has been communicate like because of that, it's how it's impacted the way I've communicated with doctors and people, professionals and people in my life. So nobody really like I've pushed it off as an issue. So I really haven't talked about it. And maybe that's a problem. Like I've talked about it, but I haven't really like every
Yep.
time I talk about it, I'm like, well, yeah, I have these anxious things and it's really bad, but like I can still live my life and I can still do things. Like, so maybe
Yeah, it's good that
mm,
you recognize that, because as a doctor, I can tell you one of the most difficult things is having a patient who has a problem that they minimize. Right. So then,
right.
like, if they say, like, hey, sometimes I get anxious, and I'm like, oh, does it, like, how bad of a problem is it? You're like, it's no big deal. And I'm
It's
like, what?
kind of I really thank you for that because I didn't
Think
I
about it,
just
right?
it's like literally like an epiphany. I didn't even think about it that way ever.
Yeah. What are they supposed to do with that? Are they supposed to take it? Are they supposed to test your thyroid? Because you're kind of saying it's not that big of a deal.
Right. Does anxiety have anything to do with control? Like
Sure.
wanting control? Is that what it's all about? Like wanting
All
control?
about? No, no, I don't think so. But I think that control is one of the foods for anxiety that we talked about. Because if you can control, then you don't have to worry. But it doesn't deal with the source of the worry,
Mhm.
right? So, like, if you think
True.
about when you pull out the cell phone, even though you're not controlling, it's in the same vein as controlling, right? Like, you're like giving yourself order around your fear to reduce your fear.
Right.
And
Man, it's so can people get better? Like, I'm obvious that's a stupid question. Of course they can, but like, I can't even in my head being so consciously aware of the problem and like even being conscious of like maybe even a solution to fix it. It's hard for me to go through the gymnastics to say that's going to improve because I'm conscious of certain things. You know what I
okay,
mean? It's
Austin,
hard.
let's talk about this for a second. You said that's a stupid question. Is it a stupid question?
I guess not
Why not?
because I'm thinking that's in my head and I'm thinking it. Uh,
Good. Excellent. Great
yeah.
place to start. So now the question becomes, why are you thinking that?
Because I feel like if I'm aware of what's wrong, it shouldn't be a problem. If I'm
Yeah.
aware of the problem, why can't I fix it?
Yeah. So beautiful. So, like, I'm going to phrase it a different way. I think that's a manifestation of what I'm about to say. The reason it's not a stupid question is because you have no experience of having fixed it.
Yeah.
So, why on earth would we expect you to believe that something is fixable if you've lived it your entire life?
Yeah.
It's like telling a deaf person, like, oh, yeah, you can hear. And they're like, that sounds dumb. And so, if you've lived with anxiety your entire life, it's completely normal to feel skeptical that this kind of change is possible.
Yeah.
Because, like,
Okay.
in your brain, like, you've been conditioned to have anxiety all the time and for it to be crippling. And you did your research on the internet and you looked at this and you looked at this and you looked at this and you've been fighting against it for decades and it's still there. And we want to call you irrational for thinking it'll never go away? No, man. It's completely rational. And
That's
it happens to be the case that you can get rid of it.
it's just I haven't taken I need to take those steps. I want to take those steps
Sure.
because I'm sure my audience sees um it affects people call me, especially like one specific example, my professional life is my tendency to be very almost too much with the TOS on Twitch because of getting banned. Like I'm very, 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 very aggressive in moderating that. And they see that, but that's rooted in my anxiety surrounding making sure that the platform stays up, up and it doesn't go down or get banned or whatever, or somebody doesn't say the wrong thing or somebody doesn't get hurt by what somebody says. Um, it's all rooted in that, which is, as now I've learned through this, which is rational, but it's so sorry, it's so complicated. But like maybe Maybe I overreact a lot on certain things.
So here's what I'd leave you with, Austin. Okay. Because
Okay.
I think we should probably wrap up. So the
Yeah,
first
sure.
thing is that I want you to try to notice for lack of a better term, it may not really be the voice of your mom, but notice the voice of your mom as it pops up. So, like in that moment where you're like concerned about TOS, is
Mhm.
that Austin speaking or is that Austin's mom speaking? And then the next thing to do is if it's Austin's mom, then see if you can like just listen to her words without doing anything about it. As best as you can, just sit with that fear and acknowledge to yourself that, like, if you're on a plane and you're like, okay, here we go again, this is the part of my mind that's going to activate and is going to be terrified about all these things. And if I open up my cell phone and I look up things, that part of me is going to feel better. And now this is where people start to jump to conclusions and they say, don't open up the phone. Incorrect. The most important thing is that you see, like, okay, can I get away with not opening the phone? Or does this part of me really need this right now? And if it really needs it, like, you don't want to be an asshole to that part of you. Like, because there's a chance that there's a 6-year-old to whom something catastrophic happened, and now the 6-year-old is just paranoid because they're afraid catastrophic things are going to happen. We don't want to be an asshole to that 6-year-old. We got to understand that sometimes the 6-year-old needs things that are a little bit irrational and like aren't great in the long term, but sometimes they just need what they need because they're 6. And so as best as you can, just play with that and sort of be like, okay, can I get away with not doing this or do I really need this? And if you really need it, go ahead and do it. And then this becomes the important thing. Watch what happens to the voice of your mom. See where it goes. Does it go away? Does it feel better? Does it feel relieved? Is she yelling at you about helmets and then you put on your helmet and then she kind of calms down? And the second you take off your helmet again, there comes the yelling. I put on my helmet. I went for a ride around the neighborhood with my friends. I came back and my helmet was off. That's the jolt. That's the turbulence. And then she comes out of the house and she starts yelling again. She turns on and she turns off. So what happens when I do this? Start to become familiar with that part of your mind. Understand in what ways it works and in what ways it doesn't. And it's through familiarity with who we are and how we function that we gain control over ourselves. We're living a life where we're blind to like who we are. We don't understand how we work. And then we get confused and we call ourselves irrational. We invalidate ourselves because it doesn't make sense. Because we don't understand. Like, no, there's nothing about you that is false. Like, I don't know how to say this, but like, reality is real. Like, you're real. Your thoughts are real. They're just thoughts. They're not facts. They're not reality, but they're thoughts. You're real. You actually exist. This is a problem that you have. Irrationality is just a lack of understanding. Because nothing in the world is irrational. Like, people thought that, like gravity and all this kind of crap, there's order everywhere. Economics, medicine, physiology, psychology. Order's everywhere. Nothing is irrational. And the better you understand that you are like a human being and your mind can be understood, your anxiety can be understood, you just have to look at it because you never looked at it. You're so busy judging it and dismissing it, you got to look at it. And that shit is OP, man. Because it's like you're trying to play League of Legends with a blindfold on and like you're just getting bodied right and left. Like, no wonder. Because you never look at it.
I would get bodied if I played it at all, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to do this. It's been a tremendous experience. Thank you to your audience and for listening. It was sort of in the beginning, I was very anxious to say the least to
Yeah.
talk about it. I feel very calm now and collected. Um, yeah, thank you very much.
So one last thought. So people,
Sure.
I sometimes let people slip away without meditating. Do you want to learn meditation? Are you interested in that? Do you meditate?
I don't. I'm open to anything.
Is your nose clogged? You have like allergies and shit?
I think I have allergies and shit. Is there a
Yeah.
booger that you've been looking at for the last couple
No,
hours?
just based on your Ayurvedic constitution, I'm assuming that it's going to be hard for you to do nasal breathing practices.
Hold on here.
Yeah,
I
there
have
it
a
is.
little bit of a running nose. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I have allergies.
yeah,
Yeah, I
that's what it
can.
looks like. Allergies
And
and anxiety are related, by the way, in Ayurveda.
really,
Yeah. If
I
your
never
anxiety
really had
gets
like
better,
severe seasonal allergies as a kid
it's
ever.
just general like atopy kind of crap.
Yeah, like a little
You have,
scratchy throat. I lost my voice. I don't know what's going on there, but
Yeah.
Can you lose your voice with allergies?
Huh?
Can you lose your voice with allergies, have a raspy voice?
Generally, no, but I think you just got atopic stuff going on. Do you have like eczema and stuff too? Like dry skin, oily skin, like different parts of your skin are all
I had severe acne, moderately severe acne growing up,
it's a little
so
bit
tend to
different,
be
but
on the oily side, but,
okay.
that was treated with, yeah, Accutane.
Anyway, so
Accutane.
I'm thinking that maybe nasal practices aren't going to be great,
Mhm.
but we're still going to have to use the nose because you're going to have to
Okay.
breathe at some point.
Yep.
So let me just think. How do you
Okay.
feel about chanting? We haven't done chanting in a while.
Chanting?
Yeah, very
Uh,
anxiety provoking, huh?
yeah, it sounds scary, but what is the yeah, sure, I mean,
Okay.
what is it?
So this is great. So I'm going to show you, we're going to do Om chanting. We haven't taught this in a while, so we'll do it. So
Okay.
Om is composed of 3 syllables, ah, oo, and Okay.
Ah, and
And so basically the way to think about it is like if you start with a completely open mouth,
hold on,
um,
you cut out actually.
oh,
Ah,
sorry.
ah,
Um,
ah. Do I stop?
no, yeah. So just go from like open mouth to closed mouth, right? Do you see how like that's the syllables?
I'm so sorry. You keep cutting out, so I don't
Oh,
know
it's
exactly.
Discord. Discord does this. Okay,
Yeah,
this is going to be
it's
confusing.
yeah, it just keeps cutting out. So I'm just like, "Ah."
Yeah, I think that's right. You're
Okay.
cutting out for me too, but
Okay, so I go, "Ah," and then I shut my mouth,
you go ah, then you go ooh, and then you go
and then you shut your mouth.
yeah, and then when you shut your mouth, you go
Okay. Ah, ooh, mm.
Great. Yeah, I think it's something with like auto detect voice algorithms with Discord that we can't hear you either.
So
But
so I
hold
do that,
hold
but
on a second.
how long do I go to do
I'm going
each
to
part?
demonstrate. I'm going to teach you. Hold
Okay.
on. Let's start with this. Okay.
Because my noise gate is
Okay. So we're going to do. Hold on. Voice activity. Let's do push to talk. Okay. I'm going to. Oh, hold on. You can't hear me anymore. So does this transmit better if I do push to talk?
let's try. Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to demonstrate for you. Okay,
Now
you
I
don't
can't
have to.
hear you because your push to talk
Oh
stopped,
shit,
but
I forgot. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate. So I'm going to show you one round. Okay,
okay.
so what I want you to do is sit up straight, take a deep breath.
You
Okay.
want me to switch to push to talk?
No, it's okay. I'll transmit because it's okay. The chat will follow me. Okay.
Okay, do I close my eyes?
Yeah, so I'm going to demonstrate first. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate 2 rounds. So I'm going to take a deep breath in. And one more time, okay? And we'll talk before we have you do it because I can
Okay.
see you're anxious.
I'm a
It's okay.
I'm
Look at
trying not to
no.
I'm trying not to, get
Don't
it.
try not to be anxious. The whole point of this is that we want you to be anxious. I'll
Okay,
explain that in a second. One
got it.
more one more observation, okay?
Why do I feel compelled to, like, giggle?
Giggle.
I can't hear you, sorry, doc to push to talk.
Giggle.
Like, I
Just
like,
giggle.
when you were doing it, I
Just
wanted
giggle.
to laugh, but I didn't wanna
Just
be disrespectful
just giggle, man.
because I know this is, like, an actual thing,
Just
but
giggle. Giggle.
I
Okay, we're
okay.
gonna do it again.
Well, now that
Giggle.
you say that, now I'm not gonna laugh, so that's, like, one of the
No,
things
no,
that's
no. Just
probably
giggle. Just
okay,
see
well,
what happens.
I don't really
Notice it within yourself and just do whatever you want with it. Okay, we're gonna do one more time. You can
okay,
giggle if you want to. No big deal.
okay,
We're good.
I don't need to probably because now you know
Let's
that I
see.
know
Okay.
okay.
Ready? Giggle?
No, see, that's so you taught me another thing is when you can, like, call out the fact that you have a tendency to laugh on something that maybe you shouldn't be laughing at, and what was interesting is I felt like I shouldn't be laughing at that, but I didn't find it funny, it was just that I was laughing at the fact that I shouldn't laugh. Is that weird?
Yeah, and then when we call attention to it, you gain awareness of it, and I tell you to giggle, what happens to your
I
desire
don't
to
feel like
giggle?
I need to giggle anymore.
That's what you need to do with your anxiety. Just goes away. If you
Got it.
look at it, it just goes away. That's the whole fucking point. Okay, so now we're going to do that with chanting. And what I want you to do is pay attention
Okay.
to your anxiety because everyone else is going to be giggling at you,
Got it.
right? You
Maybe
see that?
I might giggle
It's going
during
to
this
be
time.
silly and they're going to laugh at you,
Okay,
Austin,
that's okay,
because
I'm okay.
Austin is a silly boy.
Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
And so notice that feeling in yourself and then
Okay.
close your eyes. And what I want you to do is take a deep breath in and I'll walk you through it. Okay. And
Okay.
then what I want you to do is don't focus on the sound, focus on, there it is. Good. So silly. See
It's
it.
so it's not even funny, but
It's okay.
okay.
It doesn't need to be funny for you to laugh.
Okay. Alright.
Don't control it. Don't
Okay.
dismiss it. No, none
I'm
of
just
this.
gonna keep myself
No. None of that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So notice it within yourself. And then when you're chanting, I don't want you to focus on the sound, focus on the vibration. I want
Okay.
you to pay attention to where in your body do you feel the sound.
Okay.
Okay, it's fine to smile. Okay, so close your eyes, sit up straight. Okay, deep breath in. Ah, great.
Uh, uh,
There it is. Okay, good. We're going to do it again. Eyes closed, no breaking character. That's the only thing, okay? You can giggle, but no opening the
just
eyes. Okay.
just keep if I giggle just like in a performance of any kind, you move forward.
You just giggle, but sit with your giggling with your eyes closed. Make giggling your meditation, if that's what happens, okay? So we're going to do it again. So deep breath in. Good. Again, deep breath.
Uh,
Look at the silliness for a second. Just look at it. Eyes closed.
sorry,
No
sorry.
opening. Silly. Again. Third time. Okay.
It tickles a little bit. Is that normal?
That's fine. We're going to do 3 more. No
Okay.
talking. Eyes closed, no talking. Giggling is allowed. Observing giggling is allowed. Nothing else is allowed. Okay. 3 more in succession. Okay. So I'm just going to do a breath, chant, breath, chant, breath, chant. After the third chant, we're going to just remain silent, no talking, no opening your eyes. Feel the person that you are when you're left over. Okay. Here we go. Again. Third one, make it count. Don't stop it. Just be.
Uh,
Good. Eyes closed. Just feel it. Feel yourself.
uh,
We'll do this for about another 30 seconds, okay? Try to feel the residual sensation of vibration.
Why do I want to?
And now we're going to take a couple of deep breaths. So I want you to breathe in for 3 seconds and out for 3. In for 3 and out for 5. So slow it down. And then in for 3 and out for 7. Real slow. And when you're ready, open your eyes.
That was actually, I feel very calm. It's, when I was nervous in the beginning because I was afraid that laughing was inappropriate. And like, it just feels very like, I feel very relaxed.
What happened to the anxiety?
It's gone for now. But yes, it's gone in this moment. Yeah.
Yeah. But wasn't it there before we started the practice?
Yes.
When did it
It,
go?
yeah, it went away after this was after like I acknowledged through this process that it was okay to laugh in this moment. I could giggle. I could chuckle at the fact that we were going, and then I acknowledged that, and then is that is that the practice? Is that literally? Or is this something that you find people giggling at all the time, or is it just like my personal experience with it? Or maybe it's irrelevant, but
Yes, that's the right thing. It's irrelevant.
okay, because it doesn't matter really. It worked for me, so why would I care about it? It doesn't,
Yes, Austin. And here's the thing. So there's a couple of really important things about this practice. What have you cognitively been doing for the last 2 hours? Like what's that thing that you catch yourself doing that I taught you at the very
Yeah.
beginning?
I catch myself like trying to explain that it's not a big problem or things aren't a big problem or
All kinds of restrictions of who you are, what you think, and what you feel. And there's that restriction with the giggling.
yeah.
If you can learn how to giggle, all of those restrictions are going to go away. You can just be you. That's the whole fucking point. And people think like, oh, you shouldn't laugh during meditation. What do you guys think the point is? Laughing during meditation is like the best outcome. It's not serious. Like, what are we doing this for? Anand. Bliss. If you can laugh during meditation, when Zen masters become enlightened, the first thing that they do is laugh. So laugh. Let it out, buddy. Just let yourself, like, if it's silly, like, go for it. Silliness is irrational. It's the nature of irrationality. So who the fuck cares? Embrace it. Laugh. Be at peace. Let yourself be yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome, man.
That was you. I really think what you're doing is tremendous. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome, bro. Take care.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Take care, Dr. K. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Alrighty. So, cool. I just wanted to clarify one thing. So, I made a couple of statements about it's been kind of bothering me because I just really want to be clear. So, I don't think that people who perpetrate sexual harassment or sexual assault should be given a pass in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, I've just found that I try because I have a personal value system. So I also think, let me just be clear, that I think that there's like real evil out there. And I don't think that we should give